It's a party in here today. I will call the February 20th, 2024 City Council work session to order and turn it over to David Cook.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, thank you. That was good. Let's go. How about first we'll do some employee recognitions. I'm going to call on William Johnson. William. He's going to do a couple employee recognitions.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'd like to start with special recognition that'll go to our Economic Development Department. This late last year, there was a recognition by Business Facilities Magazine for the new Siemens project that went in here in Fort Worth. It was recognized as for an advanced manufacturing facility. This magazine is a national publication utilized by site selection companies all over the country. And Siemens was recognized and awarded. And big thanks goes to our economic development team, led by Robert Stearns and Cherie Gordon as our project manager. Congratulations. And I've got one more. On last week, during Visit Fort Worth's annual meeting, they awarded the Beyond Award. Now, the Beyond Award goes to the frontline employee who exemplifies exceptional customer service to our visitors and our guests. This is an annual award, and it's a major recognition. This year, the award went to one of our public events team members and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Convention Center's events coordinator, Maria Herrera. Maria? Congratulations.
William, I know you're going to let me brag on Maria a little more than that now.
Please do.
All right. Well, Mayor and Council, good afternoon. As you know, travel and tourism is a significant piece of Fort Worth's economy. Over 31,000 residents work in the industry, generating over $3.1 billion per year. Mitch, did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Visitors to our community have great experiences in Fort Worth and return again and again, not because of what they get from decision-making wonks like us, but because of the service that they receive from frontline employees in the industry. Every year, Visit Fort Worth honors the best of these professionals with their Beyond Award. The winner of this year's Beyond Award is Maria Herrera, who serves, there we go. Maria serves as an event coordinator at the Fort Worth Convention Center. She was nominated by her supervisor, Fort Worth Convention Center's Senior Public Events Manager, Allison McNamara. Allison, wave. Rest of the Fort Worth team who is here to support Maria, wave. Cool. All right, in her nomination, Allison noted that Maria's clients routinely compliment her for her dedication and enthusiasm to provide an excellent customer experience. Maria, in turn, passes credit for those compliments to the team at the Convention Center for their execution of those events at the highest level. Maria has been a member of the Fort Worth Convention Center staff since 2021. She previously worked at the Worthington Hotel in a variety of positions. We are fortunate to have her on our team. It's important to note that this is the second Beyond Award winner in the Public Events Department in the past 3 years. Claude Humphrey, who serves as Field Operations Supervisor at the Will Rogers Memorial Center, won the award in 2022. Please join me in congratulating Maria as this year's Beyond Award winner. Obligatory photo. Okay? Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Next, I'm going to call on Richard Zavala, and he's going to announce an award of a grant.
Good afternoon, Richard Zavala, Park and Recreation Department. I am pleased to share with you that in January, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission awarded a $1.5 million local park fund grant for the Sycamore Park Community Project. You may not know, but we closed a golf course there a few years ago, and we master planned the northern end of the park north of Vickery. We had $2 million in the 22 bond program, allocated an additional $2 million in general gas capital, took that money to Austin, leveraged it for another $1.5 million. So we're going to do a $5.5 million project on a park that was one of the original 8 parks in the park system, Trinity Forest, Caps, and those, including Sycamore. So we are reinvesting in that. And because we're using a Parks and Wildlife grant, we're doing a lot of natural habitat within the park, besides trails, wetlands, things like that. It'll give us a start to connectivity up Sycamore Creek to the Trinity River. So it's a really linchpin project for something that we're doing here. So I want to thank you. I want to thank the council, because throughout my tenure here, councils before you and this councils have supported Land and Water Conservation Fund, have supported the local park grant fund, which comes from state sporting goods sales tax. We're pretty good at it. Since 2015, we've gotten 8 grants totaling $8.1 million. The last one was at the Nature Center. We're going to dedicate that in April, and we're going to kick off with Sycamore in 2024. So I wanted to let you know the good news. Thank you.
Congratulations, Richard. I think Councilmember Bivens has a comment.
Good afternoon, Richard. How are you?
Outstanding.
This is not a trick question. I'm going to start with a compliment, okay? I want to thank you for your people showing up at Mosier Valley over the weekend for a meeting there. And for folk who don't know, Mosier Valley is where the first freed slaves settled in Texas. And we have built and continue to work on a park there. But this is my effort to help you out. From time to time, people want to donate land, and they want you to take it up as a park. What kind of land do you not want?
Generally, we're looking for standards based on our park, recreation, open space master plan. And we do it by population and neighborhood park units and community park units. So that's the first test we always run on land to see, does it fit that criteria? And if it does, we'll explore it further. Generally, our smallest size parks are about 5 acres. We shoot for that, but we do have in our plan the ability to do smaller parks, more in the downtown area and micro parks. Yes, ma'am, I understand.
Mayor. I want
Be
to
a
thank you.
terminus.
Thank you, Richard, for your hard work. I truly am grateful for the investment that we're doing at Sycamore Park. I know Representative Ramon Romero is going to be excited about it. He talks about that park quite often, the Poly community. And so thank you for your support, and we're glad. I love the master plan. I look forward to seeing what we do over there.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard.
All right, now I'm going to call on Valerie Washington, and she's going to recognize, thank, and congratulate somebody who's going to retire soon.
All right. Thank you, David and Mayor and Council. I think I'm a little sad to say this, a lot sad, to bring up Brandon and Henry as they are on their way to retirement together. I think, is Henry with you today, Brandon? But I wanted to take an opportunity to let Brandon and Henry have an opportunity for you, Brandon, to share all that you've done here in the city of Fort Worth, with code enforcement, or sorry, code compliance.
Oh.
And I know, Brandon, you'll get emotional. But that's okay, though, because I think we know that. But if you want to take a minute and just really talk to us about your retirement and your plans and what you and Henry plan to do, we'd really appreciate it. So with that, let me introduce Brandon Bennett and Henry.
So if I can get the staff kind of crowd up around the other podium here, just kind of bring it all in. So I brought some real critical staff with me today. I probably will forget to recognize them, and I really only brought them so they could see the pain that council has to go through every time I give a presentation. So, you know, this is the A-team here, and I will not forget to mention them. So this will be after 43 years, 20 with the city of Fort Worth. So it turns out I'll finish to the minute at 20 years. I started on February 23rd of 2004. So it's been a good ride. So, but we're here today not to talk about me, but to talk about my best friend and a great coworker. And I brought notes to keep me on track. So I have an article here. I think this is a good place maybe to start. This will be a quick presentation, I promise. It's from January 20th, 1981, and it's not much of an article. It's just about a kid and a horse. 16 years old, regular suburban kid, lives in a suburban neighborhood, doesn't know anything about farming and ranching. And he comes across this malnourished horse, and comes a time when he says, I just can't walk by this horse anymore. And he gets a job washing dishes, and when he's got enough money, he heads out the door to go buy that horse. And you know, he thinks that it all figured out, but about halfway there, he realizes he doesn't have a way to bring the horse back. So he goes back home and cuts down his mama's drying line in the backyard and makes a halter and a lead rope and takes the horse home, puts it in the backyard. And a few hours later, mom and dad show up. And of course, now they're curious why there's a full-grown horse grazing in the backyard. And the dad asks this kid, he says, probably 100 questions, you know, what does it eat? What about vet bills? How long does a horse live? And, you know, this kid's, I don't know. And so finally dad says, what do you know? And the kid says, I knew I couldn't walk by that horse not one more time, and I know I'll figure it out. And that horse lived another 25 years, and they figured it out, that he taught the horse how to ride in the back of his pickup truck, and they took him off to school. And when he graduated college, traveled halfway across the United States to his first job, and raised 4 beautiful kids, taking care of that horse. And, you know, but the other part of the article, probably the most significant part of the article, and it's really in the last paragraph, is they ask him kind of what his dream is, and his dream is that someday he'll work in animal welfare. And almost 30 years to the date of this article, he gets a call from the city manager. And the city manager says, hey, would you like to run animal welfare? And then the city manager says, oh, by the way, there's no money, there's no staff, we're in the middle of a recession. You're just gonna have to figure it out. You know, the live release rate at that point was less than 30%. We were one of the lowest in the nation. Just everything was working against animal welfare here in Fort Worth. And but the one thing that wasn't working against us was the staff. You know, they were small in number, but big in heart. And they got that live release rate up to about 40%, but they struggled with trying to get it higher because there were so many sick animals in the shelter, and not a good way to isolate them or a good way to care for them. So one day, this boy, now a man, is walking through the shelter, and he comes across this pitiful-looking dog. It was on the euthanasia list for that afternoon. It had been running with a pack of aggressive dogs, had been chased for weeks, and finally gave in to malnutrition, dehydration, pneumonia, you name it, he had it. You know, his ribs and his hips were sticking out. His belly kind of hung down on a very frail frame. But there was something about that dog that this man saw. And when he looked into his eyes, it reminded him of that horse of his youth and the potential and the life and the opportunity. So he said, we're going to save this one. And the medical staff, again, reiterated to him how bad the dog was, maybe wouldn't even make it through the night, and maybe pick a different one. And you know, this man, if you know him, you never know what the hell is going to come out of his mouth. But I think this time he got it right, because he said, we're going to call this dog Henry. And we're going to save Henry, and we're going to save a lot of other animals just like him. And staff did just that. So the medical treatment ward, Henry became the face of all that is possible, working with former council member John Stevenson, local businessman Bill Baker, and the Community Foundation of North Texas. Henry and the team raised $1 million to build a state-of-the-art medical treatment facility. And I'll tell you, Henry, we spent $2,500 getting Henry back to health. Over the course of his career, he has raised $4.8 million for Fort Worth. That, from a financial sense, he is the best sales person that we got on staff. So it was the first of a kind in a public shelter, but has since become a national best practice. We also, working with our business community, were able to reach out to PetSmart and PetSmart Charities. We were the first ever adoption center in a PetSmart store. And not only did we have one, but we very quickly added a second one, one south, one north. And that continues to operate, that they allow us the space free of charge, and then they make donations of goodie bags and food and things like that when people adopt. We get a little fee back from them, or a little bit of money back from them. But it was a first of the kind improvement. It got the live, between the medical treatment ward and PetSmart, we got the live release rate up to 70%. So we went from 30% to 70%. And the momentum started to really push the program forward. So we then really adopted very progressive rescue, foster, and outreach programs. Animal Care and Control revamped its adoption and reclaim policies, making it less expensive to adopt an animal or reclaim a lost pet. The city implemented mandatory microchipping, so when we find a dog in the field today, we return it right back to the owner. Animal control staff dedicated, or animal control dedicated staff to be an outbound team focusing on getting even more animals into rescue. And Ginger Leach is here, a part of the team. Ginger, she has been instrumental in running that outbound team. Her and the team were able to push that from a 70% live release rate up to an 80% live release rate. And the story continues. That we were one of the first adopters of a national transport program through using grant money. We were not taxpayer money, using grant money. We had a Fort Worth truck and a Fort Worth trailer, and we took our pets that we couldn't find homes for all over the United States to shelters that had capacity and could find homes for us. We went as far as Maine and as far as Canada. Today, Fort Worth coordinates with transport partners who do it for us, including, as you can see, using airplanes to transport some of these homeless pets. So that pushed our live release rate up to 90%, and even during the pandemic, we got as high as 97%. So we went from 30% to 97%. And, you know, no program, is good without brand recognition. It's got to be part of every business plan. Henry became the canine face for the city, working with area healthcare, credit unions, food service, and national corporations to participate in community employee programs. So I like the picture to the left, Cook Children's Hospital. One of our greatest partners has been and continues to be Saving Hope. That is a great organization, and we work step in step to save animals. We also drew the attention of local and national animal associations. There's a picture there of a disaster trailer that was donated from Fort Worth Kennel Club. And that trailer has gone all over the state during hurricanes and tornadoes and things like that, provide care for animals. And then kind of the picture I like is this one here to the right. That's Henry at the Van Cliburn Performance Hall where we snuck him in. So at times he could be a little naughty too. So in 2018, the voters overwhelmingly approved a bond package for a new North Animal Shelter. We wasted no time in getting it built, opened it up in early 2021. It's been featured in a number of trade magazines for its pod design, both matching our Western culture and providing a much better environment for animal shelter pets. And it's also recognized as a national best practice. So, as I get into the final couple of slides here, probably the thing that Henry is most famous for is being the K-9 ambassador for the city. You name it, Henry was probably there. He never missed a single State of the City presentation. Morning news shows, Blue Zones, Cowtown Cleanup, ham radio, Storm Spotters, NASCAR, Habitat for Humanity, ice storms, pandemic, West Nile virus, dunk tanks, you name it, he did it. In fact, the kind of the fun story about the dunk tank is we put them in a dunk tank and people paid good money and intentionally missed the target because they couldn't stomach the idea of a lab going into water. I don't know. But I'll tell you the two favorite things for Henry over the years, by far, the two favorite. First was table scraps at the Fort Worth Club, right? He'll tell you those are the best table scraps ever. And second is the time that he spent in schools, that Henry spent day after day with hundreds and then thousands of children. And we have Kayla Gonzalez here today. Kayla was the handler that facilitated that. And in fact, this past Thanksgiving, we had Petsgiving at the shelter, and there was a mom that came up to me and she was going through her phone to find a picture because when her boys were in elementary school, Henry had come to the school and they had taken a picture with them, and there at the shelter that day, the kids are in their teens and still doing animal welfare thing, and she wanted to get an update photo with Henry. That anywhere he goes, there's always somebody that says, I remember Henry because he was here and he was there. Now, I will tell you that there's some intentionality to all of this because really that story about the kid and a horse and a dog wouldn't be a story at all if it weren't for these folks that are standing here to my right and your left. Joe Riney, Tony Hiller, Benny Hunter-Smith, and William Kopp. Right? You guys raise your hands. Right here, these are the rock stars of the shelter. I have employees over here that have worked over 20 years. These guys work with a heart of gold where they're smiling, they never stop. They're always taking care of the pets, always taking care of the customer. They rock. And of course, I introduced Ginger Leach. Jerry Capshaw was the shelter manager for a number of years. We got Barry Alexander to show you how hard animal control is on a person. And he looks like he's 62 years old and he's only 29. So we have Chris Lorette in here. We have Anastasia. And we have, I see we have Chris McAllister there in the back. Chris, raise your hand. Chris is new, right? And we didn't expect him up there today. I think he just snuck in with the group to try to get a little extra attention. So Chris, thanks for joining the group. But when I say that with all intention, I think that as I conclude my final presentation after all these years, that I wanted to make sure that my retirement wasn't about me. Because truly I've done very little in my life. That I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for all that these folks in the community and all of you did to support me along the way. That I am a reflection of the good things about these folks and the place that we live. And finally, none of this would have happened, never would have happened, if it weren't for a special place called Fort Worth, Texas, where great things happen and dreams come true. On behalf of me and Henry, thank you for all the wonderful years. Thank you.
I bet you're not going to get away without Mayor Pro Tem saying something. I'm just guessing.
Nah, I don't want anybody to move. Brandon, I really appreciate the way you celebrate and lead your staff. There's not a time I can't call and someone is there like Clark Kent jumping out of a phone booth. That takes a lot. And what I can tell you is, I was very angry when I read the Star Telegram expose on the kill rate. And I don't know if the reporter is here, but I did tell her, you can't talk about how many animals we have and how many may have to be euthanized without talking about pet owner responsibility. The animals just don't get on a bus and get to the shelter. They're there because you guys care enough to try to rescue. And I will always tell people how important that responsibility is. When it comes to abusing animals, I know when you guys get a call, you're there on the spot. And I just acknowledge you. I don't know what Dana's going to do when you retire, but I hear retired husbands sometimes get in the way. So you may be able to volunteer. You know, we'll know before you. And in closing, I do want to get up there and take a picture with my beautiful flowers. But in closing, I will tell you, every member on this council asked me, where did I get my code compliance shirt? And I told them I could hook them up.
That's right.
For a fee.
For a fee, that's right.
Thank you for all the years and the dedication, the commitment. I don't know who is going to replace you, but whoever it is, tell them, get ready for calls on the weekends.
That's right.
Because we know no 5-day, but they're the ones who make those calls. Thank you for your service, your commitment, and thank Henry as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? No. I think you're the example of public service. What else can you say, Brandon? And you're a ton of fun to work with. Today, you just went through the things that you've accomplished with animal care control, but in a emergency operations center, you're usually the one that's on point, but also trying to bring levity to really difficult situations. During COVID, your very lengthy presentations we gave you a hard time about, but you took very seriously the responsibility that you had for public health for the city of Fort Worth. We will miss you. We'll see you later, but we know we'll see you around Fort Worth eventually when you come home from Colorado. Apparently, he's got a one-way ticket to enjoy himself. Kudos to you and what you've done with Henry as a great example of what it looks like to really foster and ultimately adopt a pet like Henry. You've been an inspiration to everybody else around this table. My adopted dog does not quite act like Henry yet, so I think I need to work with him a little bit more. Yeah, we love you so much. Thank you for taking the time to tell your story today. It was beautifully done. And to your entire team, thank you for supporting such an excellent leader over the years.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Got to take a picture with Gina here.
Hey, stay, all right.
Yeah.
Almost got there.
Well, yeah.
Thank you, Brandon and Henry. There's also a celebration/party this Thursday afternoon at Hazel RV Peace. Put it on your calendar. All right, next up, we have a few informal reports. This might be I don't want to jinx anything, but
Yeah,
this
you
might
shouldn't
be
have done that.
the shortest list we've had in some time. Here we go. The first informal report is, and it's timely too. It's on incentives to build dog parks in multifamily developments. And DJ Harrell and Richard Zavala are available if there are any questions.
I think Councilmember Flores has a few questions.
Yeah, no questions, but I would like for you all to, or you, DJ, if you can handle it, to run through again what the thought process was before, because I know with you, Richard, we've talked about that before, ways to incentivize developers to do it. I articulated that in the SIR request. So kind of sketch out for us what that might look like, for us when we make decisions on multifamily developments. Again, the thought being, we want to encourage responsible, pet ownership, right? How do we increase that? Well, one logical place to look is in multifamily developments.
Yes, sir. The neighborhood and community park dedication policy allows us to negotiate dog parks within either multifamily or single-family developments. They can get a credit if they keep that public and open to the public. We've listed about 8 in there. There's a couple of them that are open to the public. Others are for residents only. They don't get credit towards the policy. But we've seen a lot of interest from developers with that. Every park master plan we do, everybody wants a dog park. We're focusing those, as we listed in there, Z-Bones and Fort Wolf, our larger parks is where we want to have those gatherings, because you got to have parking lots and fences and those kinds of things. I'll let DJ talk about how we can promote it even more effectively through the PDC, things like that.
So our job in development services is to make sure people know about it, that knows about these opportunities to dedicate special areas for our four-legged friends. So one way we do it is through pre-development conferences. Another way we're trying to look at doing it during site plan review for zoning cases. And also we are developing communication materials that we'll circulate throughout the community to tell what we're doing in Fort Worth, and we'll include this on that radar as well.
Generally, when it comes to the reaction from the development community, and I've had these conversations before, and probably, many of us here at the table have had similar ones. But when you bring up the idea of a dog park, for example, there's usually the initial, interest level, right? Maybe even a little further preliminary buy-in. But then when you start maybe, getting some slower, just some reduced interest in it, when it comes to the maintenance of that, has the city ever thought about maybe having some sort of public, private collaboration with maintaining such dog parks with the development community? Has there ever been that kind of discussion?
Not from our perspective. If it's open to the public, then we can talk about adopt-a-park arrangements, things like that. If it's closed to the public, it's up to them. I mean, what I'm going to say to them is, you're trying to fill your houses and your multifamily sites. What's going to expand your potential for customers? And if you've had that additional element, that's going to be help with occupancy rates. It just stands to reason.
And DJ, when do the discussions about the inclusion and incorporation of a potential, dog park come into play in the development application process?
Right, so in general, right, all of our multifamily projects and our single-family projects have a park dedication requirement. And so when they're coming in to do their either early consultations or pre-development conferences, whichever track that they choose, we discuss, the best potential path for their development, right, and the options that are available for them. And so that's the opportunity that we have to share about, regular park dedication as well as dog park dedication.
Okay, so at the PDC level, final question. Potential connection with the mayor's good-natured initiative. Do we see that perhaps as being something to boost this type of effort?
Well, as a matter of fact, there was a meeting we had with the Real Estate Council this morning, and they want to talk to us about how we tie all these efforts together. Our riparian areas, our open space initiatives, our dog park initiatives. We want to have a more collaborative conversation about how all these things fit together, and maybe we can have one policy to promote and incentivize all of the things.
All right. Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, DJ, don't go anywhere. The next informal report is the monthly development activity report, and DJ is available if there are any questions.
Hey, DJ, could you just give us a rundown of what development's looking like across the city and where we're trending?
Okay. So over the last year, residential has slowed a bit. However, commercials remain steady. I think we ended up 13% on commercial volume. Residential volume, I think we were down a good bit, but we weren't down so much that we were behind 2019 levels. We were right between 2019 and 2020 levels with regard to residential volume, with a strong suggestion that it will be increasing in the fall.
Okay, and when you say residential, do you mean multifamily and single family?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so you said overall, we're doing well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and there's no particular district or area that we're worried about?
No, not necessarily. Overall, again, commercial's been, really strong. A lot of our, small businesses have kept us afloat. We have some pretty large businesses that have come in as well. District 9 in particular, I think last month, about 20% of our commercial value came from a project that was in District 9. And so, across the city in every district, we've seen activity in our commercial areas. We're just, hoping that our residential areas will pick up as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It had come to my attention that at least one of my colleagues was worried about development in District 9. So I'm glad to hear that the numbers bear out that we're doing well. I would like to point an error that I think on page 7 of our development activity report. Proud to boast $72.6 million in District 9, just as a little pat on our back. But I did notice there seems to be an error, and that is 2151 Green Oaks Road is noted in District 4, but it's actually the single project for District 3 on this list. So I'm sure Michael Crane would like that fixed.
Thank you. And thank you.
Any other questions for DJ? Thank you.
All right.
I think you get to stay there again.
Yeah, he does. And then the final informal report is a monthly report on Senate Bill 2038, which is release of areas within our ETJ by petition. And DJ is available if there are any questions.
Any questions on this? No.
Thank you, DJ. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, any questions to changes in memberships or boards? Any questions on the M&C log? Great. I will move on to our presentation on economic impact of the Fort Worth Film Commission. I think Robert Stearns is going to kick things off and invite our guests up to join him.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I'm sure if you've been perusing the press lately, you've either seen the headline or the tagline or somewhere in the article that Fort Worth is having a moment. I've seen that in a number of places. But when I see it in Vogue, not that I'm looking at Vogue that often, but when I see it in unexpected publications like Vogue, I think it's true to say that we really are having a moment. And when you think about unexpected places, that really aligns with the tagline that Visit Fort Worth has given us as the unexpected city. Part of that moment that we're having is the growth in our film industry and the work done by Visit Fort Worth and the Fort Worth Film Commission. I can't tell you how many times I've been watching TV or going to a movie and I see a Fort Worth landmark. I hear Fort Worth's name being mentioned. It is a leap from where we were years ago when the Film Commission got started. And so that is indicative of the work that both Mitch and Jessica have been doing. And we thought it would be really good to have them come to council today to outline the great things that our creative community is doing across the city and the great work that Visit Fort Worth and the Fort Worth Film Commission are doing. So with that, I would like to welcome Mitch Whitten, Chief Operating Officer for Visit Fort Worth, and Jessica Christopherson, VP of Marketing for Visit Fort Worth and Fort Worth Film Commission Executive Director.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Council, for giving us the opportunity to update you on our growing film production in Fort Worth. And under the direction of our CEO, Bob Jameson, who's here today, and with the support of Taylor Hardy, also our Associate Film Commissioner, it's been growing. And as you know, Visit Fort Worth has been adding to our tourism story, built on the foundation of conventions, Sports Commission. Thank you, Macy, for your support on that, and others, restaurants, music, and other ways to promote our city. Filmmaking is economic development, and we've been at this for 8 years, but the economic impact is over $750 million. That's not just about hotel rooms. It's about sales taxes. It's about visibility given to our city. Our locations guide on our website includes locations from each of your districts. So it really is a citywide effort. Jessica's going to tell you why this is now involved in education with new partnerships with Tarrant County College, as well as a recent great workshop with the Fort Worth Metropolitan Black Chamber of Commerce. and now a network of studios, Texas A&M, new studios up at Hillwood Alliance. And now, beyond just tourism, Movie Maker Magazine says we are a top 25 place for filmmakers to live. And I just want to emphasize, Taylor Sheridan has been a big part of this moment, but it's not just that. Jessica and Taylor answer hundreds of calls from commercials. We were working with Toyota the other day, as well as independent films like Miss Juneteenth and some exciting ones to come. But really a lot of this effort has been, really Jessica has picked this up on her back as an additional job, in addition to leading our marketing effort, is saying, I want to be the film commissioner and make a film commission here in Fort Worth. So I want to recognize you, Jessica, for all your effort and what you've done to carry this forward.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, and thank you all so much for your support of the Film Commission and Visit Fort Worth over the years. The Fort Worth Film Commission is one of the family of brands under Visit Fort Worth. We launched the Film Commission in 2015. We were the only major city in Texas without a commission, and we were losing out on opportunities to Dallas and other Texas cities along with neighboring states. Over the past 8 years, the Film Commission has seen film, television, and the commercial industry in our area generate a $655 million economic impact, creating over 20,000 jobs. These productions utilize our hotels, our restaurants, our retail, and more. Our priorities as a Film Commission is to attract projects here and then support them once they are in Fort Worth, making sure they have all the resources they need. To build community connections and create a film-friendly city, to become a yes town, film productions require a lot of problem solving, and Fort Worth has become known as a city that makes things happen for film projects. We advocate for diverse media production and create positive community impact. So our core focus is to create opportunities. Some of those include jobs through productions, publicity through stories placed about film production, giving additional positive national exposure for Fort Worth, film tourism opportunities through self-guided location tours. Film is a very collaborative business, and we like to try to bring the Fort Worth community together as much as possible to become engaged and learn more. We provide local businesses and homeowners the opportunities to become film-friendly locations, produce quarterly mixers, allowing the community to come together to network and learn more about the industry. This year, we're implementing a series of workshops, as Mitch mentioned. For example, the one we partnered with on the Fort Worth Metropolitan Black Chamber of Commerce to create a directing and producing workshop. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Once a project is here in Fort Worth, the Film Commission serves as a hub to connect filmmakers and their crew with all the partners and services they will need to have a smooth experience. The city permit office, neighborhood, and district representatives, Fort Worth PD, and fire have all made Fort Worth an easy place to film. I want to give a special shout out to the film permit office here at the city. They have been incredible to work with and been able to turn permits in a very quick way, which is really important because productions have a lot of last minute requests. So I'd like to thank them for all their hard work. Last August, we launched a program with Tarrant County College and 101 Studios to address the need for crew members, particularly in construction, lighting, and electric. As we continue to get more productions to town, we need a strong crew base so productions will be able to hire local. This micro-credentialing program is affordable, and it's a 4-week course. The goal is to create a direct line to employment after receiving certification from Tarrant County College to 101 Studios projects, along with other productions in the city. The program will continue to grow over the next year, adding hair, makeup, location management, camera, and accounting certifications. We actually have an event tonight at Tarrant County College Northeast Campus to promote the event. We have over 500 people RSVP'd, so there's definitely interest in the program. Investing in local productions creates a 1 to 5 return in economic impact with a wide range of businesses such as hotel spending, equipment rental, catering, dry cleaners, and more. As mentioned before, it also creates opportunities for film tourism and creates well-paying jobs with transferable skills. Tarrant County ranks 4th among the top 20 counties ranked by the number of projects, according to the Texas Film Commission. We recently worked with Olsberg SPI, an international creative industry consultant that specializes in the global screen sector, to undergo a study of the impact of film in Fort Worth and Tarrant County. The study results reported that Fort Worth is considered to have the most film-friendly, proactive film commission in Texas. Fort Worth has the hotels and catering options needed to support productions. Productions have an overall positive experience in our city, and we have strong location options. Taylor Sheridan and 101 Studios are creating positive impact and opportunities for locals, and our education and training initiatives well received by productions. And the overall quality of life in Fort Worth is appealing to productions to come here and stay and eventually move and become part of the permanent crew base. Hotels are starting to see the impact more and more, particularly with Taylor Sheridan 101 Studios productions. This is a snapshot of the last two productions and where we are so far with Landman. So as you can see, our hotels are definitely being utilized by film and television crews. Working with Olsberg, we were also able to provide a breakdown of distribution across industries. So you can see a major television show not only affects the screen production sector, but also hospitality and catering, finance, legal, health and medical, safety and security, fashion and beauty. So these are all the different types of industries that are touched here in Fort Worth when a production sets up in our city. And finally, Fort Worth led the charge in efforts to increase the film incentive program this last legislative session. So thank you again for everyone's support on that to get this program higher than it's ever been in the state's history. The key will be able to keep or grow the program to continue to be competitive with neighboring states and to ensure we can keep productions here. The Media Production Development Zone in Fort Worth is another opportunity to attract long-term business here. So thank you, Robert Stearns, for all your work on that initiative. As of now, Fort Worth and Austin are the only designated MPDZ zone cities in Texas. Happy to answer any questions.
Jessica, what you didn't do is brag on yourself, which doesn't surprise me necessarily, but I'm being sincere that when you talk with any of these producers, no matter big or small, one of the top things they tell me is that you are an excellent leader for this initiative, and it started so small. I know that you have a great team and Taylor and others, so just thank you for leading the charge, and you're so well respected in Austin as well. So Fort Worth led there, but because of the things that you've done here for the city of Fort Worth. So just wanted to note that.
Thank you so much.
The only other thing I think I'd ask you is what next, right? And whether it's a legislative priority that we need to work on together, or anything that this body can do to help continue the success of the Fort Worth Film Commission.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. The initiative with Tarrant County College is huge. We need to continue to have a really great crew base in Fort Worth to attract projects here in addition to a state incentive. But the more we can support that program and provide opportunities for people to learn and become trained crew, then the more we'll have an advantage over other cities, I believe.
I would just add to that, we have to keep telling this story, and Jessica, you certainly do that in Austin, and because this is not an automatic renewal. We have to continue showing the benefit to our city and reminding our lawmakers to keep this going in the next biennial.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Council, our next update is from Texas Wesleyan University. Dr. Emily Messer, president of Texas Wesleyan, is here to present. Emily, thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor Parker, City Manager Cook, and the council for allowing me to present today. I am a newcomer to Fort Worth, and so it has been a wonderful experience for myself and my family. We have now been here just around 7 months, so still very new, but it has been just a wonderful experience. I had a chance to speak with the mayor last night, and Fort Worth is officially home for us. I'm from Alabama. We went back over the holidays, and my kids and husband and myself were ready to get back home to Fort Worth. So we are truly enjoying ourselves. I want to spend just a few minutes today to give you an update on what is going on at Texas Wesleyan University. Let's see if, there we go. Moving right along for the sake of time, I just want to thank everyone around this table, around the room, for the very large Texas welcome that I have been presented with. It has been a wonderful experience. You can see we were pleased from the university to have the support from the Fort Worth Report and the Fort Worth Star-Telegram for a welcoming opportunity for me as the new president of Texas Wesleyan. The picture at the very top is really what I am here for. I am serving Texas Wesleyan University for the students, and that is the utmost priority to me. We are here providing an educational opportunity for students that may not have access in other avenues, and I'll tell you a little bit more about our student body later on. Here at the bottom right, I guess, we had our first holiday event at Texas Wesleyan. We had Light Up Tex West, and I want to say thank you to City Councilwoman Martinez and City Councilman Nettles for attending that event. It was a wonderful event for our students, faculty, staff, and their families to come and fellowship together. And then the photo at the top, that was the most frightening thing I've ever done in my life. So. Even though I am from Alabama, I had never even sat on a horse before. So until the week before, I did take a riding lesson to at least be familiar with a horse. But a wonderful opportunity, and thank you to, he's scared too, I guess? Yeah. Well, it was a new experience for me, but thank you to City Councilwoman Martinez and Hill. They guided me through it, and I made it, and it was a wonderful experience. So definitely check the box of a Fort Worth experience, right? I didn't have boots or a hat. I had to do the whole
Looked
thing.
great, though.
Thank you. Thank you. A wonderful experience. So a little bit about Texas Wesleyan strategic plan. So we are currently in the middle of a 5-year strategic plan, Engage 2025, which will be ending at the end of next year. Engage in community, engage in learning, and engage in leadership are the priorities. And so that is why I was so elated to have this opportunity to come here and speak to you as representatives of our community and the leadership that you assist through your efforts for Texas Wesleyan. I also want to give a huge thank you to Fernando Costa. He is the one that actually recommended that I come and present to you. He is on our President's Advisory Board and has been extremely helpful to me during my transition as well. I also want to point out the photo right here. So one of the exciting things going on at the university currently is that we had our largest incoming class at Texas Wesleyan in the 133-year history. And this is a photo of our new students this past fall semester. So we have an outstanding trajectory of serving the students of our region. Just some infographics. I'll highlight just a couple of these. Obviously, many of you know that Texas Wesleyan is a very diverse community. 59% of our students come from diverse backgrounds. One of the key components to our student body is many of them are first-generation college students, 47% in fact, in addition to them serving as first-generation college students and Texas Wesleyan providing the opportunity. I myself am a first-generation college student, so I'm very passionate about serving that student population. But right there at the bottom, 100% of our students that are undergraduate full-time students receive some sort of scholarship or grant to attend our university. That is extremely important for our student population. And I will also ask that we are the only university that is an HSI in Fort Worth. So we're proud to say that. 81% of our students are from Texas, and as I mentioned earlier, we had one of the largest enrollments. We had 2,653 students this past fall semester. A little bit about where our students come from. So the new students in our fall 2023 class came from these high schools, Fort Worth ISD schools, with Northside High School being our largest feeder. These are schools that we will hear more about later probably, but outstanding students that are able to come to Texas Wesleyan and stay in their local area to pursue their education. A little bit more about our new students in particular, and I think this is so important and important for you to know. 72% of our new students are from Tarrant County. So that means we are educating our students here in Tarrant County, here in Fort Worth. They're graduating with a college degree and they're staying in our area to work. So we are providing the workforce for our area. 98% are from Texas in particular. Moving on down, 67% of our new students this past year are Pell eligible. So that means they come from lower income families. So it reinforces the fact that those scholarships and grants are so important to providing access to the students from this area. And we're very proud that the average high school GPA was a 3.47 for our new students. A little bit more of an update on enrollment. This spring semester, we had the highest spring enrollment since 2015. But even more exciting, highlighted in the yellow, is that we are 28% ahead for freshman applications for this upcoming fall than we were this time last year. So not only did we have a historic new student class last fall, we're trending 28% ahead of that for this upcoming year. A little bit about economic impact. We've heard a lot about that, but even the small school on the east side, Texas Wesleyan University, has a $148 million economic impact for our region with direct spending and induced spending. And so we are pleased that our friends at the independent colleges and universities of Texas provided us this information. I'm going to keep moving for the sake of time. We have many different alumni and community engagement opportunities, but before I move into those, how many Texas Wesleyan alumni are in the room? Yes. Yes, well, we'll count that. So we do have our alumni weekend coming up in addition to alumni weekend, which will be April 19th and 20th. That will actually kick off the new president's inauguration activities. So we hope that you're able to come celebrate with us. I have been told that the Wesleyan Wine Walk is a lot of fun. Who doesn't love wine, right? And it's an opportunity to see our campus. And this year, we will be adding the president's office to the wine walk. So you can come and visit me in the president's office during that as well. Fort Worth Business Hall of Fame, we are always pleased to host that. Many of you have participated in that in the past. Main Street Fort Worth, we are active partners with Southeast Fort Worth, Inc. on that project. And then the Texas Rangers Foundation, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. We have an event coming up to serve our community in East Fort Worth. That's the Wesleyan 5K. It's March 2nd. So if you don't have plans, we hope you can attend that with us.
I'll run if Chris will run. It's 8:30. 8:30, he's not gonna be there.
Chris, come on now. He's a Board of Trustee member. So I do want to spend a little bit more time this afternoon talking about our comprehensive campaign, Engage, Inspire, and Invest. So that is we've got a lot of chatter going on about Chris running in a 5K.
We're terrible. Yeah, keep going. We're focused, Dr. Messer. Keep going.
We have a $40 million comprehensive campaign currently going on, with the key components of that being athletic excellence, endowments, facility enhancements, and programmatic opportunities. Of that $40 million, we have achieved $31 million already, but we are still needing assistance with the athletic excellence and the endowment portion of that. So I want to spend a little bit more time on the athletic stadium that we are working on. And let's see, there we go. So that is a brief snippet of the Karen Kramer Athletic Stadium. While the video is very football focused, this athletic facility will also provide opportunities for both soccer and track, in addition to many different other opportunities. So I want to spend just a little bit of time on this. So this is a major project that we are right in the middle of. So we've divided the project into different phases. So the first phase was the field and the track, the lights and the uprights. So those are there now. If you drive by campus at any time of the day, there are students out there on it, whether they're practicing track or soccer or football. So it's already being utilized. The second phase of that will be the Moritz Fieldhouse. And we do hope to break ground on that probably late spring, early summer timeframe. And then the last phase will be the grandstands, the press box, the concessions, etc. So City Manager Cook, at the beginning of this meeting, he said, let us know how we can help. Well, Mr. Cook, it's right here. In all honesty, we are working on many different avenues for completing this project, so it has been a fundraising goal of ours. I also want to introduce Senator Beverly Powell. I don't have to introduce her. Everyone knows her, right? Senator Powell not only has served on our Board of Trustees for many, many years, she has taken a hiatus from that and is working for the university. She is serving as Special Assistant to the President for External Affairs and working with many of you around this room. We've already had some meetings, but we are hoping to be a partner with the city on this project so that we can continue the economic development of East Fort Worth. The Rosedale Renaissance made so many great strides in the progression of that community, and I think this is going to be just in addition to that, the opportunities to bring people to the east side of Fort Worth, continue filling the retail space that we have on the Rosedale property, partnerships with Fort Worth ISD, hopefully. We have some club soccer teams interested in partnering with us so that that can be their home field. Many different opportunities that will continue to revitalize the East Fort Worth community. So more to come on that. We will be reaching out, but we're very excited about this project and what this will bring to not only our university, but the community. Other improvements through the comprehensive campaign, Martin Hall improvements, if you've been in that space, it's outstanding. This upcoming summer, we will be renovating some of our science labs on campus. The Texas Rangers Youth Academy, I wanted to briefly speak on that. I know I've had a chance to speak with Councilwoman Bivens on this project. Texas Wesleyan was approached maybe a year or so ago, prior to my time, from the Texas Rangers Foundation about creating a Texas Rangers Youth Academy in Fort Worth. Many of you know that there is a facility, a very nice facility in Dallas, and so they want to show the love to Fort Worth. We've been working with Parks and Rec, the City of Fort Worth, Texas Wesleyan, and we met with the Texas Rangers Foundation on August 2nd, which was my second day here. It was interesting. We are looking to move forward with that, but they've kind of put a pause on it because they had just found out at the time that they were going to be hosting the All-Star Game this summer. So you can see the bottom bullet is that work will begin in August 2024. Technically, we will revisit discussions on that in August 2024. So the current site that we're looking at would be Eastover Park, which I'm hearing is a perfect opportunity because there's a Boys and Girls Club there already. So we're looking forward to how we will move forward with this, so more to come on that project. Leadership Academy Network, many of you are very familiar with that, with our partnership with Fort Worth ISD. We have 6 campuses that we're working with currently, and it is going very, very well. Those scores of those schools have increased significantly. Upward Bound program, I just moved right along. We have one of the largest, actually the largest Upward Bound program in our region. We have 4 Upward Bound grants, and we have the most students of any other Upward Bound program. Lastly, I will just say, many people ask me, what can we do to help Texas Wesleyan University? I would say share our story. You know what our mission is. You know we're serving students and providing access and opportunities for them to better themselves, change their lives, change the lives of their families, their communities, and change their future trajectory as a whole. So tell our story. Tell people about Texas Wesleyan, and then join us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Lastly, just a little bit of information about the inauguration events. We have a full week of activities scheduled, beginning with an alumni brunch on Saturday, April 20th, concluding with the inaugural gala on Friday night, April 26th. So we hope you can attend, participate in some of our events. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Dr. Messer? Yes, Councilmember Martinez, I just gave you an upgrade.
I got another degree, yeah. No, I just want to say, just congratulations again on your new role. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I look forward to a continued partnership and to celebrating you at your inauguration ceremonies. And Chris, we can do the 1 mile Willy Walk, if you want to do that.
What time is that?
Right. So, it's not about the walk. I will do the walk. It's just about the time. Thank you, Dr. Messer. We really appreciate working with you. And I know that we're looking forward to working with you with Southeast Inc. and Poly Main Street, how we refigurate that whole district over there. It's been a pleasure, even Beverly Powell. And so I've been in those meetings about the football field. I'm excited to say, I don't know, did they win the championship? Did we win last year, the championship?
Oh, we were so close.
So close.
So close.
But the last 2 to 3 years, they have really been showing out.
For a program that started back in 2017, we went 9-2 this year.
Yeah.
So
And,
doing really
let the
well.
coach know I used to play running back. He was a quarterback. If we need to get across the finish line, we can help make that happen.
We still have 4 years worth of eligibility left.
Oh, well, what time is practice, though?
If y'all are gonna
What time does practice start?
If y'all are going to play, we're all going to be there. Don't you worry.
So, but again, thank you. Is Richard still here?
Yeah.
Okay, Richard, I don't know how that got from District 8 to District 5.
I know it, I know it.
The Texas Ranger thing, we'll talk offline about that.
The
It's supposed to be
talks-
District 9,
the talks
so,
are
Mayor
over.
Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Talks have ended, it's over. And it was contingent upon you agreeing to one of those morning walks, and so that's how. Okay. Dr. Messer, it's, you are, people kind of wondered after, Fred was leaving, what's the new president gonna be like? And I can tell you, you've hit the ground capturing the hearts of all of Fort Worth. My mom and sister graduated from Wesleyan. I only stayed for a year, but I will be attending as many events as I can. And if anybody gets a commitment from Councilmember Nettles to participate, let me know, because I will show up and cheer you.
I'm gonna do it.
You gonna do it? Yeah. He woke up this morning to be with me, but it was in your own district, so he only has so many mornings he can do that. But thank you for all that you've given so far. Thank you for riding the horse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so very, very,
Thank
and
you.
welcome to Fort Worth.
Thank you. Oh, hey, if I can do it, anyone can do it. So, yes. Just make sure they put you on a very nice horse. I talked him through it. His name was Dave. I said, Dave, take care of me.
I'm gonna ask for Dave next year.
Any other questions for Dr. Messer? No. Excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
We
much.
appreciate it. Okay, council, our next update is from Fort Worth ISD. Dr. Ramsey will present on behalf of the district. Dr. Ramsey.
I'm gonna need this hype group to follow me everywhere. Mayor, council, city manager, and staff, thank you for allowing me to be here, and especially thank you for your grace for rescheduling when I wasn't able to come due to a death in the family in January, so I really appreciate that. So, oops. Oh, that's not going to come in, but that was supposed to show just the comparison between our Fort Worth ISD boundaries compared to the city of Fort Worth. Our council knows this, that there are over a dozen school districts within the city of Fort Worth, and for us, a challenge has been that most of the growth that's happening in the city does not coincide with our attendance boundaries. Just a quick update on our demographics. As we continue to lose students, we've been having declines in enrollment for the last 13 to 15 years as our neighborhoods age out, as we do not replace the seniors that graduate with incoming kindergartners, and of course, due to charter schools. We continue to have an uptick in students that have the most need. So fewer students, but students that are higher in free reduced lunch, we're inching up. Pretty soon, we'll be at a place where we're serving 9 out of every 10 students that are free reduced lunch. In Fort Worth ISD, we do provide free breakfast and free lunch to every child in our school district. You see the inching up of our students with special needs. And then we're about 4 out of every 10 students that enters our school district, that is emergent bilingual. Again, just some interesting data on student poverty rates, and you can see that in Fort Worth ISD, we have significantly more students in that under $25,000 a year family income and $25,000 to $50,000 income. And so our teachers, our staff are doing God's work, providing services for the students in our community to ensure that not only are they receiving a high-quality education, but sometimes that we are the largest food service provider in the city, right? We're the largest transportation business in the city. We have food banks at several of our schools. We make sure children have shoes and jackets, and even families have social needs taken care of, including mental health supports. And so as we continue to have needier students, we meet the needs of those families. So last year when I came, I spoke to the council about the listening tour that I was on. We had a SWOT analysis that you can see there. This really helped be the seed for our strategic plan. So we are in the middle of our strategic plan. If we haven't gotten you the dates, we have 13 community meetings beginning next week. Please help us communicate that out so that we can have the diversity of our city come and be a part of our strategic plan. At the end of the day, we want that plan to belong to the city because our schools belong to our community. But I'm really excited to talk to you a little bit about our test scores. Last week, we had the opportunity to present to our school board all of the efforts that our students, our teachers, and our campus and district leaders have been embarking on in the last, this school year and in the spring as we worked on reorganization. One particular test is called NWA MAP. It is a test that is given across the nation. And I'm not going to go too nerd on you because I can nerd out on data, but the RIT scale, it's a RASH unit, and that's how the test tells us how our students are doing both on performance and on growth. What it does is it tracks a student beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. And we're able to see national mean data from across the country. Not like school districts, so maybe not school districts serving 85% children in poverty. It could be school districts that have a small number of students in poverty. And yet our mean and the national mean this year is very on par. You'll see that mean, that national mean down at the bottom. But what I'd like to point out is that every single grade level had growth from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. Down at the bottom, you can see what that national mean is. And we're right on par. Kindergarten, 146, 146. That's amazing. It's great news for the city of Fort Worth. When we look at our reading for our Spanish speakers, also huge gains, beginning of the year, middle of the year, all grade levels. And that mean, also right on par. This is for our math. So those were reading, these are math. Look at those gains from beginning of the year to middle of the year. All grade levels and Algebra 1. These aren't scores we typically get to come and share. We don't get to share out even with our own board. And so last Tuesday night was definitely a night of celebration. Because we want to continue that growth. We want to ensure that a complex organization, 10,000 employees, over a $1 billion budget, 140 schools, that has a lot of needs, has really thoughtful solutions. And so for us, we want to ensure that our strategic plan has short-term, midterm, and long-term goals so that we can meet the needs of our families, not just today, but far into the future. Obviously, we want to prioritize those needs. We want to have a strength implementation process because if you have a plan but it's not implemented, there's no point in having a plan. A way to monitor that progress so that in increments during the school year and in the summer, we report out publicly at board meetings, what did we say we were going to do and how did we meet the mark there? And any course corrections that are needed, and then continuing that two-way communication so that on an annual basis, it is a living document, and if there are changes needed, we can take care of those on an annual basis. I think the council's aware that we're also in the middle of a master facilities plan. So we embarked on that plan this fall. We believe that the plan will be completed by December. The point of the plan is to have a 10-year plan on any maintenance, any proactive kind of maintenance that you need. We also know our newspaper likes to talk about possible school closures. I'd like to state publicly, we're nowhere near any of those conversations because we have a master facilities plan that won't even be done until about December. And so until that time, then that next step is, here are the recommendations from the plan, what next? So we don't have a list. I know I saw a headline this morning, but then I clicked on it and I was like, whoa, we're closing schools? News to me. And then I clicked on it and I was like, oh, it's about a school district out of state. As we continue to communicate, we want to make sure that our families understand where their students are and how they can assist them. One of the ways that we've implemented that this year is a change to the report card system in early education. A regular kind of grade for a parent. So if you tell a parent your child has an A in math, that doesn't actually tell you what are the standards that they're doing really well in, where are the areas where they need some improvement. So we went through a process that was really inclusive to get to a new early ed report card that is very clear for parents very early on. Where can they lean in and where are the areas that their students may need some additional assistance? It's also really great internally because as a staff, you can then create intervention plans and provide support to students on an individual basis. We're working on the next step, which is to do that exact same thing, but at the elementary level. Because same thing, if you have a second grade student and they have a B in reading, you don't know if they're doing really well in understanding the main idea and maybe they're struggling with inferences. So moving to a standards-based report card provides parents on a scale kind of a 1 to 4, a better understanding per Texas standard how their child is doing. We've heard over and over again, an area of improvement needed is communication with parents so that parents understand where their child is. We've heard you, and we're making those changes so that we can continue to partner together in the success of your children. We've heard a lot about economic development and how really our linked economies, beyond our over $1 billion budget, we have a $1.2 billion bond program happening right now. And so we have the ability to provide a lot of economic vitality into our city. So it's really important to us from that side all the way down to ensuring that our students graduate college and career ready. So our last graduating class, we're inching up to 90% of our students graduating on time and over 60% of them graduating college career ready. That's huge. We have over 18,000 students right now taking an advanced placement course leading to college credit this spring. We're close to about 500 graduates this spring that will receive their associate's degree before they ever get their high school diploma. There are some fantastic things happening in Fort Worth ISD where we really have endless opportunities, not only for our students, but our entire community. And there are always places for us to partner and assist. One is communication. We hear a lot, our schools are not safe, and I want to let everyone know that our schools are very safe. We continue to be audited by the state as a part of the program. They come and check to make sure they cannot seek to get into our schools. We're doing great, but more than that, I wanted to kind of differentiate between a hold and a lockdown. It's pretty common that our schools are on a hold for a variety of reasons. Today, we lost power for a little bit. Encore was amazing. It immediately let us know. They got the power turned on pretty quickly, but out of an abundance of caution, we put the school on a hold. That just means that we're not going to change. Students aren't going to go out into the hallway. As best as we can, we're going to kind of keep the kids in the classroom. We also put the schools on hold when there's any police activity in the area. That is not a lockdown. That does not mean that there's a safety issue at the school. But we know that the difference between a lockdown and a hold sometimes, especially in the age of cell phones, we send a message and say we're on a lockdown. We communicate with our parents anytime that happens when it's lifted, but for the most part, those holds happen out of an abundance of caution because there's police activity in the area. So we want to make sure that our families know that our schools are safe. Housing, this is an ask. If there's any way we can continue to work on affordable housing and in our boundaries. The council has done an amazing job of growing our city. We would like to see if there's any way where we can partner, and partner as a part of that master facility plan. And as we get down that road, to continue to find ways to have affordable housing for our families. We began the process of doing an exit process when a family exits the school district, and the overwhelming reason why they leave us is to find housing in another community. So they're leaving our school district to go to another school district as they look for specials for apartments and housing that may be not as high when it's time for them to renew their lease. Just overall health, we have some amazing partnerships. If you haven't seen, we have not only food pantries at our schools, but now we have at O.D. Wyatt the first really grocery store, including with fresh fruit and vegetables. I mean, it is amazing for our families in those kind of food deserts. And so any ways that the city and the school district can continue to partner. I love the wellness run. Know that we have groups from Fort Worth ISD that will be participating because it's important that our students gain healthy habits early on so we don't have to unbreak them later. So if there are any ways of continued partnership so that we can ensure that our students feel healthy, safe, and connected at school. And then the poverty rate. We need to continue to ensure that we're paying a living wage across the city. All organizations, all businesses. I think I recently went to a luncheon where it was said that in order to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in our city, you have to make about $22 an hour. And that's to afford the housing. That's not childcare, Wi-Fi, transportation, and everything else. And so we have to continue working together, and if there are any innovative ways, we want to be a part of the solution so that we can start increasing our students getting into the community, having their families have gainful employment, so that we can keep our students here and so that we can build generational wealth in our communities. And ultimately, that is my goal. My goal is to build generational wealth in the city of Fort Worth. And how do you do that? Man, you start with high quality early education programming, free after school care, which we have, a great K-12 system, and keeping our dollars local as much as possible. So I'm here really just to say that we are here to work with you. I appreciate all of your support. We continue to feel like the community is wrapping their arms around us. Your city staff have been wonderful, and we just appreciate the upward trajectory that our students are on, and I hope to be able to continue coming to present to you the amazing academic achievements that our students and our teachers are gaining. Thank you, and I am open for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. Questions from council? Chris, go ahead.
Thank you for being here today. I was one of the ones that asked for you to come and bring these reports. I think it's important for the city of Fort Worth to understand education and how we can support our education system. And so it was good to hear from number one say the no schools on the list closing. I mean, I got an email the other day and said, hey, you know, I heard about a school in your district closed. You might want to get involved in that. And so the chatter around the city is different from what's actually happened in our school district. And so it's good that city leaders need to know the information. And so thank you for sharing the information. I think it's also great that Dr. Messer and you're here at the same time to see the list that she provided, those who are coming to Texas Wesleyan are from the Fort Worth ISD School District. Right. O.D. Wyatt and Northside and others I saw. And so we are a partner here. We want to be a partner and get involved. I have been listed to sign up and volunteer at some of our Fort Worth ISD schools just to show my support to the school district and the school system. And so thank you, Ms. Thompson, for helping put all this together. And I saw the list, and I'll be working towards how we can help you in those regards. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Dr. Ramsey, thank you for being here. Good to see you. One thing that I want you to know at a real local level is a few years ago, I was trying to get an effort where we would have a daytime meeting to allow students to see how government really worked. We were going through a very difficult time. This was after the murder of George Floyd and the protests to come. and most of our speakers were coming to chastise council members. And so with the entry of this mayor, we have a formalized daytime meeting. And I don't want to see just students from Fort Worth ISD. You know, we touch so many districts, and so I'm glad that LT is here. I met him at the Y, but I just wanted you to know, if there are any schools that you think really need to see this, feel free to call the principal, let us know, because it's really important to me and this entire council that we grow new leaders. And they can grow if they get a chance to come watch us work and see how we engage in discourse and how we handle conflict as well. So thank you for being a partner with that effort. And I think at the last meeting of the month, we'll have about 50 or 75 students. I picked up another child care center yesterday, and those are kids who will be, don't tell my mother I said kids, but these will be young people who are pre-K and kindergarten, so I'll shock staff with that. They don't know that yet. But I'm glad to see Fort Worth ISD participating in that effort.
We have some amazing scholars coming next week from Dunbar High School, and we're ridiculously excited about the opportunity because we need to engage our students in civics education outside of the classroom. So
I am
thank
a
you.
wildcat. And thanks to Councilmember Beck, I have a dog tag that gives me the definition of wildcat. It described me perfectly. So I'll wear my Dunbar jacket.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Well, I'm a Raider because I am a Fort Worth ISD, product of Fort Worth ISD, and both of my children attend Fort Worth ISD schools. And I really just want to take a minute to publicly thank you for making the change to come here to Fort Worth. And you knew what you were getting into. You knew that we had to roll up our sleeves, and I would expect nothing more from an Army vet to get it done. So that's right. Did you hear that? I can tell you, as both a member of council and a parent of Fort Worth ISD, you can see a difference in the community and the pride that we have and the growth that we've had for our public education system. So thank you. Thank you for coming. Every person at this table wants to see you succeed. So please don't forget that on the hard days. Know that, look at our faces and remember them. Some of them are easier to look at than others. Sorry, Chris. But know that we're here, and please don't ever hesitate to pick up the phone and call. And we heard you about affordable housing, and I can promise you that you have a council here that is really dedicated to making sure that happens. But thank you for that lens about school districts, because we often get discussion at this table about, well, how is it going to impact the ISD? And we hear neighborhoods talking about we don't want them because of the schools. And so to have our superintendent say that you need affordable housing within the boundaries of your jurisdiction really goes a long way. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Jared?
Yeah, hey, Dr. Ramsey, thank you so much for today's presentation. Thank you for the charge to us to focus on housing safety as well as health and poverty. And know, for me personally, I stand committed to continue to work with this body to do everything that we can. I just want to touch on the poverty piece. I think it's so important that organizations like ours pay wages where folks can live in the city that they serve. And so know that that's a particular point of interest for me in my work on council with the rest of our colleagues. And I'm just really grateful for today's report and homework. Know that we're rolling up our sleeves and working with you.
Thank you.
Carlos?
Dr. Ramsey, thanks for the presentation. And I know that you and I have talked here in the recent past about specific ways that we can help parents communicate better. I'm a parent of 2 kids in the ISD. I consider myself, reasonably informed, but at times I even have difficulty wrapping my head around all that information presented. And many parents that I talk to incidentally tell me they're not sure how to access it. Even if they can, how do they correlate or compare, data? I know that improved test scores and growth measured here that you showed in your presentation are correlated. I guess going forward, and I'll look at your district strategy because I haven't read it through, is at what, you're making measurable gains, and that's an achievement into itself. But when it comes to strictly test scores, when does growth start, becoming achievement. I guess that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for. Right now, COVID had its impacts to public schools. And y'all are working through that. Totally understand that. But as you continue making growth, it's at a certain point that growth will translate, hopefully that's a plan, into that achievement. So I would be curious to learning more about that.
Sure. What I didn't present today was, excuse me, some of the data that we presented last Tuesday on actual achievement for Dreambox, which is mathematics, and then our Lexia, which is our reading. So the state test, both in reading and math, are content tests. And a lot of people confuse reading on grade level or the reading test, thinking that it means whether a student is reading on grade level or not. It's a content test. There are standards. So the reading test tests things like, can you infer based on maybe colors that a character is wearing, whether the character is sad or happy? That's content, not actual, are you reading on grade level? Our Lexia scores halfway through the year showed that the minimum growth that students have made in Fort Worth ISD for Lexia is 8 months of growth. For some grade levels, it was 9 months, 10 months, and a year of growth. So reading levels in the school district are improving. That's where we hit achievement. So we love to talk about growth because we meet every child where they're at. And with 40% of our students being emergent bilinguals, I always use me as an example. I was an emergent bilingual student, spoke Spanish going into school. I did not pass my 3rd grade reading state test. That did not mean that my public school was doing a bad job. I was growing. I was just developing my language. I did not pass it in 5th grade. I passed in 8th grade. I don't think that it's hindered me. The opposite, soy bilingüe, right? Yeah. And sometimes our state scores only look at one thing. And with 40% of our students being emergent bilingual, I kind of wish that we said, let's give them a test in their native language. We have 93 languages that we serve in our school district. And then give them the English test and combine those scores. Because if you get a 50% in the English and you get 80% in your native language, hell, I say you're at an 80. Like you're above, if you're 50 and 30, you're at an 80. You're probably doing better than some of our monolingual students. But I am happy and thrilled, and if you would like, I can send Lawrence some of that information on both mathematics and reading so that you can see the achievement levels that are growing. And thank you for the question.
Thank you, Carlos. Any other questions from council? Along those same lines, Dr. Ramsey, when you look at, if you go back to the slide on MAP scores, I'm just curious, there's that bottom number is national average. And I realize this is not an apples to apples question, but I'm curious, national average, let's say 1st grade 166, does that mean at 166, those students across the United States are at grade level? Or is that just simply saying that that's the national average?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there isn't a comparative to grade level with MAP, because MAP, the way the test runs is it's
a check-in, right? It's not comprehensive throughout the whole year.
It is, but it doesn't. So what it measures is an individual student's ability to get harder and harder questions with higher difficulty levels correct. And so we may all be in 3rd grade, let's say, but our test actually is going to look different, because if I get the first 4 incorrect and you get the first 4 correct, yours continues to move up. And so there isn't a grade level comparison for MAP. What MAP does is it looks at where is a child when they entered that school year, beginning of the year, and how fast are you growing them so that at the end of the year, you've seen growth of at least one school year. What we're seeing that's great here is that mean at the national level is all kinds of schools. traditional, public, charter, private schools, all varying socioeconomic and student groups. And yet, we're not far off. You do see kind of a curve, and that's because that is how the test is set up. At the kinder level, you're pre-learning, so you're going to score a little bit lower. It is made so that as you get higher in grade levels, you do score higher.
Yeah, that's helpful, thank
Yeah.
you. And then, I'm sure you have this broken down by bright spot schools. So
We
some
do.
of your schools, I'd be curious to see that data, if
Sure.
you don't mind sending it, just because I think you do have some schools that are exceeding even above your average scores, and I'm sure you're digging into why those schools, despite
Mm-hmm.
all the same EcoDis numbers, are higher performing. So,
Yes.
and what we can do as council members, especially the council members that those schools are in those districts, to continue to support them as they continue to thrive in those respective districts.
My pleasure to provide that information.
Next question is, it's my understanding you're going to do an RFP on mixed delivery pre-K this spring, is that correct?
We're working on it.
I
That is
could
correct.
clap out loud. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, is the school district is willing to partner with community-based childcare facilities.
That's right.
It is the most important thing you could do for quality early learning settings and not bankrupt our community-based care.
Amen.
And so thank you for being willing to do that. I know you're in partnership with a lot of organizations across Fort Worth. So I'll be watching closely and really kudos to you for being willing to do that. We've been begging the district to do this for
Our
a very
goal
long
is
time.
for every 3- and 4-year-old in our city to have high-quality early education.
Yeah, and draw down the money that's available to them to do so, right? Yes. Also wanted to say thank you on your partnership for T3. You assumed that partnership and kept it going. It has been immensely successful, and just wanted to say thank you to your team. Last is 1882 partnerships. Dr. Messer mentioned our partnership with Texas Wesleyan. We need to do more of those. I'm sure Texas Wesleyan would do more schools because we know it's working. I just wanted to publicly state that we think that that model does work in certain settings. And I think Texas Wesleyan has proved to be an excellent partner, especially in their School of Education. So thank you to Dr. Messer and Texas Wesleyan's leadership. And then lastly, you came last year, thank you. April 25th, we'll do another Workforce Ready graduate ceremony for all school districts in Fort Worth, including your Fort Worth ISD graduates. As a reminder, my council members, those are graduates that are graduating maybe with a credential, an associate's degree from TCC. They are workforce ready. Many of them go straight into the workforce, making more money than all of us here at the table. And we're so proud of them. And Dr. Ramsey was gracious to come and attend last year, which I thought was a big testament to your commitment to us recognizing those students. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to you, Mayor, and the entire council.
We appreciate it. Any other questions for Dr. Ramsey? Oh, I do have one more. I'm so sorry.
Yes,
Maybe
ma'am.
this is clarification that's helpful. You mentioned school closures. And I think when things were reported originally, your board approved a study on school facilities.
Yes, ma'am.
But it sounds like that's more on the infrastructure of the school rather than on the under-enrollment numbers, correct?
It's both.
Okay.
So for transparency, our board, the same evening that they approved the contract for the master facilities plan, they approved a resolution because we wanted to be very clear, open, and transparent with the entire community with all of the aspects that we were looking at. So we're looking at preventative maintenance for 10 years, but we also are looking at not only today's enrollment, but what enrollment will be far into the future. And so when I received those phone calls about this school has X amount of students, it should close, I always remind them that we can't just look at the data today, because without the city's master plan, without knowing about the wonderful work that our alliance is doing with building mixed income communities, even if a school has low enrollment today, in 4 to 5 years, it may be much higher, may double. And so we're not going to make quick decisions with short-sighted data, but we're going to look far out and ensure that we make the right decisions for our school district, not just for today, but for the long run.
That's helpful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. Okay, council, our next presentation is on infant and maternal health report. Sadie Funk, Best Place for Kids, National Director, and Sarah Reddington, who is with Miles Foundation, are up. As they kick things off, I'll start the presentation by saying thank you. We started this work over a year and a half ago to really tackle what has been a perplexing problem for Tarrant County and Fort Worth for quite some time, which is our abysmal numbers and outcome, especially for mothers and young infants here in Tarrant County. Sarah and Sadie have done remarkable work in a short period of time. They'll fly through this presentation not because of abundance of time, but I think they're so familiar with material. How many times have you presented this at this point? But I do hope that you find this helpful, and this is a new lane for the city, but something that I feel very strongly we all needed a coalition to work on this. And fortunately, the seat that I'm in currently, the Bully Pulpit of the Mayor's Office, did have convening power to put these players at the table. But we wouldn't be here today without Sarah and Sadie. So with that, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Sarah Reddington with the Miles Foundation.
And I'm Sadie Funk with Best Place for Kids.
And we are so excited to be here today to share with you the ongoing work of the Tarrant County Maternal and Infant Health Coalition. A little bit about the history of the coalition, Mayor Parker just mentioned. The coalition was first convened in September of 2022, when Mayor Parker wanted to explore a more collective and cohesive way to approach improving the quality of care and wraparound supports for Tarrant County mothers before, during, and after giving birth. And why this is so important, again, as the mayor alluded to, Tarrant County has the second highest maternal mortality rate for Black women in Texas, and as a community, we know that we can and should do better. So to build a coalition that could truly enact lasting change here in Tarrant County, we brought together all of the local large healthcare system leaders, all of our maternal and infant healthcare providers, and our philanthropic partners that were already dedicated to ensuring a healthy start and a strong future for every mom and baby in Tarrant County. The coalition engaged in key discovery activities in 2023 to determine the current local resources that already exist along the perinatal continuum, that's prenatal to 1 year post-birth, and to identify key areas of opportunity to address together. Of the success metrics that the coalition identified together, a few rose to the top. 1, connection between providers themselves. 2, building a united community of resources for moms and babies. 3, creating a cohesive and closed-loop navigation system that could enable hospitals to talk to each other and other community partners about key maternal health referrals. And lastly, to align on data to track the coalition's collective progress. Now, I'll turn it over to Sadie to talk about the coalition's progress to date.
Thank you, Sarah. And as Mayor alluded, we have a lot of material to cover, so I'm going to go quickly, and I'm not going to touch on everything you see on the slides. So I'm very quickly going to walk through these first two pieces of progress to date. So initially, our very first milestone was really to go out and do deep interviews with key health and hospital partners in Tarrant County to better understand what resources and services did they have and what was the capacity of those resources and services all the way from prenatal through that first year postpartum. And then we developed this continuum, which really outlines it. I know it's probably hard to see. We're happy to send a more detailed option later on. And then we verified this with each of those stakeholders for accuracy to make sure we were appropriately representing what they communicated to us. And based on that continuum, it gave us the opportunity to hypothesize about 3 key opportunities for this coalition. The first was awareness and access. So understanding we really needed to focus on lifting up awareness and access of critical services while recognizing that those that are already connected with some sort of service in the community are much more likely to then connect with other services. So if you're already connected with WIC or you're already connected with Medicaid, it means you're more likely to then connect to other additional services. Second was the recognition of really high referral rates, but low post activity. So what this meant was really good news that no health or hospital partner felt they were like this silver bullet. We have 88% of providers referring outside. Excuse me, I'm suffering from allergies, but referring outside of their boundaries for key referrals, but only 75% really knew what happened once that referral made. So 25%. Really, yes, thank you. 75% didn't really know what was happening. And then lastly was the recognition that health was much more than just what was happening within the healthcare system itself and really looking broader to the impact of social determinants of health. One of the things we came together on early was aligned messaging. You may remember we had the Medicaid renewal campaign that started last spring, hospitals coming together, healthcare systems coming together to really make it easy for individuals in the community to understand that Medicaid renewal was coming for the first time in a long time, where they could go for assistance and what that meant for them. We also integrated all of the resources from this continuum into the Parent Pass app, which was developed locally with families here in Fort Worth and now has 8,500 users. But what I really want to spend the bulk of our time on is talking through the maternal health interview results and key findings. So with that, last summer, we conducted 53 interviews with an additional 29 surveys completed with mothers who had given birth in Tarrant County within the last 2 years. They were 1-hour-long interviews. They were paid for their time. And that information was then de-identified and sent to the University of Michigan School of Medicine, the Zero to Thrive Center there, which is a national leader in perinatal infant early childhood mental health with a focus on
Just a second, I think
families
Mayor Pro Tem
exposed to
had a quick
adversity.
question.
Yeah.
I don't want to disrupt anything, but I don't want you to feel rushed going through
okay.
this, because some of us, I haven't given birth to a cat. And so there are some of us who I was asking Alan, are you understanding this? And so please don't feel rushed. And I just need to be able to grasp,
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I will slow down.
Okay.
Thank you. And with that, so really where we're going to where we're going to spend the bulk of our time is talking through what we learned from these maternal health interviews and how we're going to use those findings moving forward in partnership with our major health and hospital systems for hopefully healthier, more successful moms and babies here in Tarrant.
And Sadie, you might mention why University of Michigan before any alma maters get ruffled feathers here. There's a real reason why we partner with University of Michigan.
Yeah, so University of Michigan was identified because they really are not just a national expert, but an international leader in the perinatal, so that would be early pregnancy and kind of early parenting, infant and early childhood mental health space, especially with a special focus on families who have faced a wide range of adversity. So that includes families who have experienced abuse, families who have experienced neglect, families within the child welfare system, as well as military families, and other families kind of facing a large scale of diversity, of adversity. And so we thought it was really important, one, to include them because of their expertise, but two, because we really wanted an independent perspective. So someone who didn't know everything that Tarrant County had going on to really be able to help us evaluate and understand what are our strengths and weaknesses here, and how does our data align and differ from the national data around maternal and infant health. And how can we learn from national efforts, but where might we have a unique opportunity to lead here in Fort Worth, in Tarrant County, and then at a national stage. So with those interviews, as we mentioned, 53 total interviews, 29 surveys completed, more than 9,000 data points that were codified and then evaluated by the University of Michigan. I'm not gonna detail the exact demographics of those who are interviewed. You can see on the screen, I'm pretty confident all of you can read, but I do think there are a few things that are important to highlight. First is up here with regards to race and ethnicity. What I do want to point out is that we did an oversampling of our Hispanic and Hispanic and Spanish-speaking mothers, as well as our Black and African American mothers, when you compare those in our sample with the actual population of Tarrant County. So they're showing up at a higher degree, and that was intentional because we really wanted to make sure that those stories were lifted up and that we were being held accountable for their experiences. The second piece I think that's really interesting to point out is here at the bottom in the middle, when you look at unplanned pregnancies, 60% of all women interviewed had unplanned pregnancies. And this was across all demographics. So it didn't vary by age. There wasn't a higher rate of unplanned pregnancies focused on teens or 45-year-old women. It was really uniform across. It also didn't vary by race or ethnicity or income level. So it's just across the board, about 60% of births here in Tarrant County were unplanned pregnancies. Looking ahead at some key takeaways that I hope to illustrate through the data in the following slides. Overall, really exciting, 93% of women in Tarrant County were satisfied with their pregnancy, birthing, and early parenting experience. So we looked at those 3 critical periods, and overall families were really satisfied with that experience. However, there were really important differences that varied by race. So that satisfaction level was lower for our Black and African American mothers, and it was actually higher for our Spanish-speaking mothers. Additionally, 80% said that they found some sort of service helpful during their pregnancy. And additionally, as already highlighted, we know that those who were already connected were more readily connected to other resources. Looking ahead at opportunities, 20%, 1 in 5 mothers, didn't access prenatal care until after their first trimester. So that would be what we consider late prenatal care, not until your 13th or 14th month, when usually a doctor would want to see you, make sure everything's going okay. That rate also varied by race, by IPV status, so interpersonal violence status, as well as medical home status. So those who had a medical home were more likely to access prenatal care during that first trimester, whereas those who has experienced interpersonal violence were more likely to offer it about 10 weeks later than the sample overall. We also saw hypertension and traumatic birth really spring up as key opportunities for Tarrant County to focus on within mothers. 1 in 5 mothers experienced hypertension overall. But what we know specifically is that among mothers who had hypertension prior to pregnancy, so hypertension would be high blood pressure, those who had hypertension prior to pregnancy, 80% experienced a traumatic birth. That's critical, and we'll highlight this later because we know that mothers who experience a traumatic birth have a tougher time forming that initial mother and infant attachment bond, which is so critical to early development, as well as a tougher time being successful in breastfeeding, which we know is really important to health overall. We also saw that overwhelmingly, mothers wanted more support after birth. That's what we heard. What's the number one thing you would ask for? I wish I had more support after birth. I wish there was more available. I wish everybody had access to more support after birth. So that was an overwhelming takeaway from all the families. Yeah.
What defines support?
Support had a wide range. So in kind of a low-touch support was the opportunity for a more formalized way for new moms to get together in settings outside of their home with their babies. The levels of depression, postpartum depression and anxiety are very high here in Tarrant County, as they are across a lot of the country. So additional mental health supports, not just therapy, but even some low-touch parent cafes, that type of situation. And then other supports like I needed help accessing food, or my husband lost his job, and that really threw our whole early parenting experience through a loop. I would have liked help finding diapers. I will also point out this was during the majority of mothers we interviewed had experienced the formula shortage. So that came up too, and that showed up differently for mothers whether they were breastfeeding or on formula. You may remember there was a national shortage about 18 months ago, 2 years probably, yeah. Yeah. What shows over here is when we asked mothers and this is all statistically significant. So we asked mothers about, what was your experience during pregnancy, during birth, and that first year postpartum? And we looked at that also in conjunction with what else was going on in their life, what other stressors or protective factors were showing up. And so what you see here, everything here, as they say in the social sciences, is statistically significant. That means they really do have an inclination to being like causational or whatever. Very technical here, right? But what we want to highlight is everything in red made it a less beneficial experience, right? So it made the experience more negative for that mother at that specific time period. Whereas everything in green made it a better experience. And why this is important to understand is because if we look at prenatal experiences, and we see incarceration and adverse job experiences. This is not where we generally zero in our conversations within health and hospital settings when talking about maternal health, but they have a huge impact on the mother's experience and ultimately the health and well-being of that mom and baby. And so what this highlights for us as a coalition is the importance of involving non-traditional stakeholders in this work and involving non-traditional stakeholders as entry points to better focus on mom and baby early on, especially when we think about, okay, we know that those who are experiencing economic stress, incarceration, are also more likely to have late care, so to receive prenatal care after that first trimester. But then we see other things like child Medicaid receipt. That continues to show up as a protective and connective factor for families throughout their experience. So that means that families who had Medicaid had a better experience overall with birthing and better early parenting experience, and they were also more likely to connect with services.
And as a reminder, this was done before the state passed 12-month postpartum maternal care, so for Medicaid. And so it's curious to me what that impact could be positively for moms that are eligible to stay on their insurance for a full 12 months after giving birth. Having given birth twice, I can't imagine losing your insurance within 3 months of giving birth and then trying to navigate healthcare system if you don't feel well, even if your child has Medicaid. So there's some positive result out of that too that we haven't even seen in this work.
Yes, and that does spring up when we talk about what supports were they looking for. Well, postpartum, they were losing their chip pretty quickly, those pregnant mothers, and so that meant they couldn't go access mental health services. They couldn't access some of the other services they wanted to because they'd lost that coverage. So these next few slides look deeper at each stage, and once again, it's statistically significant. So here, all of the bars in red are showing things that adversely or negatively affected mom's experience during pregnancy. So there's many factors here. I do want to highlight anxiety because you're going to see anxiety and depression continue to play a role, and you'll see anxiety and depression prenatal. So anxiety and depression that mother had while she was pregnant pop back up as affecting her experience in early parenting. So this is what factors were statistically significant in affecting mother's experience during birth. And so just to highlight, you continue to see depression and anxiety, but then you also see these protective factors. Child Medicaid makes it a better experience. Spanish speaking, that would indicate that they're more likely to be a more recent immigrant. And we see that across immigrant communities across the country, that they're more likely to look favorably upon their experience, often as a sense of gratitude for being here. That's not necessarily what we're seeing here, but I will say that trends with national data. And then looking at early parenting. So this would be that first year of life, that first year of infancy. Once again, we continue to see depression pop up. We also see other new challenges coming through, childcare challenges, right? Economic stress. And what they're showing is economic stress during pregnancy, as well as economic stress during early parenting, both impact their parenting experience. And then we continue to see child Medicaid and whether or not they interviewed in Spanish to continue to be a protective factor. So we also were curious about where mothers go for trusted information. And while 88% of mothers indicated that they know where to go, there was no single source that was overwhelmingly endorsed by the majority of mothers. And you can see a majority, the highest rated was family and friends. That's where I'm going for trusted information about what's happening with my body, where to find additional resources or services in the community. But other thing that popped up that was really critical is that 25% of mothers said healthcare professionals were where they go for trusted information. And this was a really good thing to come from the interviews, because what it tells us is that healthcare can play a really critical role as an entry point for families to then be connected to avenues that they can better access resources and services. And we understand that our healthcare partners are often overwhelmed with the needs of the clients they're seeing. And so it creates a real opportunity for healthcare partners to have a smooth handoff with other resources such as Help Me Grow, which really offers a hand-holding experience for families to connect to services and ensure those connections are made. So what this tells us is this is a key opportunity in making sure mothers get the services they need. And then going back to building on what do they need and thinking about social determinants of health, you can see that social determinants of health across a variety of factors and indicators continues to pop up and play a role. We also talked to moms about what factors were important to them in a provider. And on the left side in green, you'll see the full sample. And in green, when we talk about the full sample, really mothers centered around this idea of ease of access, right? Is it close to my home? Is it free or inexpensive? But then when we dive deeper into some of our specific populations, such as our Spanish-speaking mothers and our Black and African-American mothers, what pops up is really this yearning and desire to be listened to and understood. Does my healthcare provider see me? Do they understand me? Are they going to listen to what I have to say? So that really emphasizes some of the differences that we need to understand in the delivery of healthcare. Then we looked at understanding what families say they want. What factors actually affect whether or not they know about services, and then whether or not they access services. And so on the top, it's whether or not they knew about a service, and on the bottom, it's whether or not they actually used the service or accessed the service. Once again, in trend with the rest of the presentation, red makes it less likely, green makes it more likely. And so what you see up here is our Black mothers and our Spanish-speaking mothers are less likely to know about lactation supports. So what that does for us as a coalition is it says loud and clear, we need to change this communication. We need to change how we're communicating the benefit and the opportunity of lactation supports to our Spanish-speaking mothers and our Black and African-American mothers, because however it's being done, or maybe it's not being done, isn't working. So we really need to zero in on that. Also, then I'll highlight anxiety and depression. Mothers experiencing anxiety and depression were more likely to use lactation support services.
Okay, I got it.
Yes.
He's got 4 kids, he didn't know. What is lactation support?
Yes, breastfeeding support.
Okay, I thought that.
Yep, so breastfeeding support. So someone will come into your hospital, but then also afterwards, someone will come to your home and help you with latching and all that good stuff. And so just highlighting anxiety and depression, knowing that mothers experiencing anxiety and depression are more likely to seek breastfeeding support services, that creates a key opportunity to screen for anxiety and depression, right? If we know they're more likely to go after those services, let's screen so we can connect those mothers with mental health supports or peer groups, because we know, and the research is very clear, that maternal depression impacts healthy infant brain development, right? So those are key links that we can make in thinking about how do we identify and then link to needs and services of the mothers coming through our buildings. Any questions before I move on? Yeah.
I feel like gestational diabetes should be up there just because, it's, I had hypertension, but, my sister had gestational diabetes and, that is one thing that prevented her from having another child. How is that attributing to, or how are these mothers also experiencing that onset condition?
That's a great question. So we did question about gestational diabetes, whether they had diabetes, whether they had gestational diabetes. That did not come up as a statistically significant factor in how the data played out. Hypertension did in certain areas, but specifically gestational diabetes did not have a statistically significant impact on pregnancy, on birth or on early parenting? Great question. And there's a whole host of slides in there. I also just want to offer, we're available after we'll give y'all our emails. I'm happy to dive deeper into this and provide additional background if helpful. So the next step that we did was to map the mother's experiences against that early continuum. And the big takeaway of this is that the knowledge of additional emotional and wraparound supports was low, and the usage was lower. We also talked about which providers were cited as most helpful. And you can see there's a lot of great providers up here cited as helpful, but there's really no consensus. And WIC, that received the most, was only named 15 times out of nearly 80 mothers who went through this survey. Looking ahead to areas of concern, things that popped out for us. 35% of mothers in the sample reported having a traumatic birth. This trends nationally. Nationally, the rate is about 33% of mothers experiencing a traumatic birth. Locally, it was 35%. And as I mentioned earlier, the experience of a mother having a traumatic birth goes on to impact and affect that early maternal-infant bond or attachment, which lays the foundation for brain development. It lays the foundation for early health, the development of the central nervous system. So these pieces are really critical when we think about not just mom's health, but baby's health overall. And the majority of women who mentioned who said, yes, I did have a traumatic birth, received no sort of treatment or follow-up or mental health support. Really important is that we were able to identify that 80% of mothers who had hypertension prior to pregnancy, so pre-existing, experienced a traumatic birth. So knowing what we know about the impact of traumatic births, and knowing that we know that 80% of those who have hypertension prior to becoming pregnant are likely to experience a traumatic birth, it's a real opportunity for healthcare providers and those mothers to be able to form a strong team in managing and getting ahead so that they don't have a traumatic birth. And I want to clarify something here. The traumatic birth is defined in the eyes of the mother. It is not defined medically. Medical traumatic birth there is a medical definition, but that's not what I'm referring to here. And actually, the research, the statistical research, links back to mom's experience, not to the medical experience. And when you ask moms about what made it, a lot of it is not being listened to, not being heard, feeling like they were rushed, like they weren't part of the decision-making team. And so this was a real opportunity when we were talking with hospitals and healthcare providers about the need to really slow down and think about what is that experience for mothers during the birth, and how can we get ahead and start to address some of the core issues that are leading to traumatic births. I also want to highlight, we asked moms if they ever experienced disrespectful treatment, and 18% of women did say, yes, I felt like I received disrespectful treatment based on race, religion, culture, sexual identity, or income level. So while that's not a majority, it's a very significant minority that we want to highlight and think about moving forward. And then lastly, because we've spent an hour with each of these mothers talking through some really intimate experiences, we wanted to make sure that we didn't leave them hanging. So if they said, I had postpartum depression and I still do, or yeah, times are tough and we don't have access to food, we wanted to make sure that we provide a clear connection for them to access resources. So anyone who mentioned additional needs were referred directly to Help Me Grow, which is managed by MHMR and was funded initially by Tarrant County, where a navigator called that mother, screened them for social determinants of health, screened them for depression, talked to them about their needs, and then continued working with that mother until they had successfully connected with services. So this is different than 211, where you might be given a list and have to call through. These mothers were had their hands held until they connected with those resources by this Help Me Grow navigator. And of that, nearly half of all the mothers we interviewed, we made a referral for. They were able to successfully connect with 64%, which is pretty good. And of those, 91% had what we would call a successful closed loop, which is just a fancy way of saying that this Help Me Grow person stayed with them until they actually connected with services. Not until they made that referral, but until they knew the mom connected with services and was in a position that they no longer required that outsource of referrals. So with that, I'm going to pause and pass it back to my colleague Sarah to talk about what key opportunities going forward look like.
Great. Okay, so wrapping it up, sort of looking forward, key opportunities for the coalition. What they coalesced around were 4 key opportunities. One was awareness and access. As we shared, 56% of mothers were looking for additional support after birth, but they were getting lost in the how of connecting to those services. Second was usage and connectivity, because we had a majority of hospital providers referring services out, but 75% of them didn't know what happened after that. Third was mental health, and again, not actually just counseling, but really peer-to-peer mechanisms that we could leverage existing programming and community supports to build. And then fourth, utilizing healthcare as an entry point. As 25% of moms are using their healthcare provider as that starting point, how do we leverage moms' interaction with healthcare providers, but not jeopardize hospitals' capacity, because we know they're at capacity currently? And the tangible solutions that connected to these areas were a couple things that Sadie's mentioned. One was using Help Me Grow, the fully funded mechanism at My Health, My Resources, that is a one-stop referral phone line that hospitals and maternal health providers can use. They have dozens of child specialist navigators and over 500 community partners that they already work with across Tarrant County. So healthcare providers are just one phone call away from being able to have a live person connect their moms. Whoops. Look, we went over time. It shut off on here. It's still up here. Good. I thought that was our calling to say, to get off the stage. So the Help Me Grow line was really that one-stop referral source for hospitals to be able to refer out. The second was training labor and delivery nurses on the Parent Pass app, which Sadie mentioned, but we've spent the last 2 years building this app from scratch with 200 families across Fort Worth. Many of you here helped us do that with our local community partners. We now have 8,500 families using that app to help connect to key healthcare providers, vetted community services, education opportunities from cradle to career. So that was opportunity number 2. And number 3 was really to continue to align all those healthcare providers to provide aligned communication, so we're directing parents to one place to find this information. So what does that look like as a next step? We are excited to say that we are starting a closed loop referral pilot for Tarrant County, working with those 6 major healthcare partners that will scale eventually to address the 27,000 mothers that give birth in Tarrant County each year and 27 babies. 27,000, not 27. And how we'll do that is really utilizing Help Me Grow as that one-stop referral central navigator and closed loop referral system that will report back to hospitals about what's happening with maternal health referrals. And then we're actually engaging TCU School of Medicine, medical students that will help to train nurses on the Parent Pass app, learn about this closed loop referral system, and help report back on the data. And really, ultimately, what we're seeking is to help providers understand the key trends and needs in maternal health, enable them to provide the full continuum of care that they really seek to provide to mothers. And we're really excited about building towards a more vibrant tomorrow through this pilot, and really believe that the dedication and work of this coalition, along with the leadership of Mayor Parker and you all in this room, will help to create the foundation for a healthier, brighter future for every mom, baby, and family in Tarrant County. Thanks so much for your time, and happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Mayor Pro Tem Bivens.
Yeah, I like to keep things real simple, in terms of trying to help get a key message out there. And so when I started hanging out with Pete, I basically would tell parents, ask your teacher, is your kid reading at grade level? That way I didn't have to become a teacher or anything. And so with this effort, what is the best message I can tell people? I wrote down those 2, Help Me Grow and Parent Pass. Is that good to share with people before or after birth, or what?
Absolutely. I think the best message would be to download the Parent Pass app. It was developed by parents here, and it really has comprehensive one-stop shop of resources for families, all the way to what am I going to do this Saturday with my 15-year-old or my 3-year-old, what's free and happening in my community, as well as a direct line to the Help Me Grow Navigator. So if they have the Parent Pass, there is a button that specifically says, questions about your child? Talk to someone. You can push that button, call, and directly connect with that Help Me Grow Navigator who's skilled and trained to really ask those questions and navigate for that family to get them access to the resources and answers they need. Thank you.
Any other questions? Macy?
Thank you, guys. This is really interesting. My question is more about the philanthropy piece of it, because I know philanthropy played a huge part in developing both the Parent Pass and Help Me Grow. Can you talk a little bit about, I know you said it's fully funded, but how much does it cost to maintain? How is philanthropy rallying around this, and how can we help in the future?
Sure. So the Parent Pass app was developed, certainly with support from the Miles Foundation and other philanthropic partners. I think to date, we've spent close to $1 to $1.5 million developing that app. That includes the support we provided to parents, so all parents were paid for their time. As you know, technology is not cheap, so a significant portion of that is technology, not just the development, but then the ongoing QA, and then additional outreach and connection with families here. Looking ahead and specific to the Maternal and Infant Health Coalition, we are currently in the development process of a grant to North Texas Community Foundation to help fund this initial pilot that Sarah just detailed. And looking ahead, we think there's an opportunity that if this pilot goes really well, there's an opportunity to build and launch from there to really make sure it's, it's in the water and really everywhere for families to really easily access. And I do want to thank, certainly Mayor Parker, City Manager, and the City Council, because you guys also supported the opportunity really to allow some of this initial landscape work to be done. That is so critically laid out the path forward that we were able to do, especially with that feedback and intel from mothers themselves.
Any other questions? Elizabeth?
Thank you for all of that. My question is, as you move forward and we go past just, sorry. Hi. There you go. Sorry. No, you're fine. You're fine. So as we move forward and you start the implementation process, we have firefighters and police officers that are in folks' homes daily. And so I'd like you to think about what we can do to either arm them with information or be partners with them as you move forward and collect data and start working on how we can improve those metrics.
Yeah, and we would also love to get some time with those firefighters and first responders just to share the Parent Pass app with them.
You're in the right spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So absolutely, because that can be one more tool that they have when they're entering homes and seeing a lot of need and opportunity for support.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions, council? No. I'll just share two things in closing, because it's hard when you put things in statistical numbers. So there was a really interesting AMA study that I can send to you if you want to dig into it. I think it was published in 2021, but it looked from 1999, like 2020, what numbers looked like across the United States for maternal health. It is more dangerous, especially for Black mothers in the United States, to have a baby today than it was a generation ago, which I find to be absolutely horrific. And you look at numbers, it was 26.7 in 1999, and when the study was published, it was 55.4. Now in the United States, the number is close to 69 mothers dead per 10,000 births. And so rather than us kind of put our heads in the sand about what we should be doing here locally, this is not something the city has ever really taken on. Public health usually is a partnership with the county, and which should be mentioned here, they have been a partner in this work, and special thanks to the Public Health Department at Tarrant County. But I think the work that Sarah and Sadie are leading is really innovative, because you've got every hospital system willing to work together along with your nonprofit agencies. And the good news story is, if you look at the map that's included in this deck, all the resources are here. We're incredibly resource rich. What a travesty it is if a mom or a family doesn't know how to reach those resources. And so I'm hopeful that this pilot will demonstrate some active work that we could even take to statewide at some point. But you can't do that unless you have demonstrated proof. So hopefully even into this next legislative session, and certainly in the session after that, we have something to demonstrate to the state of Texas and really show tangible results to what has, for whatever reason, become a really perplexing problem. And there are other real good bright spots. Many of you may have attended the United Way Women's Luncheon that Leah King held an entire panel on the resource of doula care in our community and the grant that they're making. I've run into two women recently. One was in finance and one was really, I think she'd had a background in plumbing, which was interesting. They'd all gone to doula school to become part of this volunteer network of doulas. One had actually spun off her own company. So there are really good bright spots here across Fort Worth that I'm just very proud of. So congratulations and keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving through. Next presentation is the proposed temporary closure of North University Drive from Jacksboro Highway 199. I'm going to stop reading, Lauren.
Can I see it on here? All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Lauren Prier, the Director for Transportation and Public Works. Today we're going to talk about the proposed temporary closure of North University Drive from Jacksboro Highway to Rockwood Park Drive. So in support of the Central City Flood Control Project, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Fort Worth District has requested support from the Fort Worth City Council to temporarily close North University Drive from Jacksboro Highway to Rockwood Park Drive during its reconstruction beginning in mid-2026 or later. It's essential that we maintain access to properties adjacent and mitigate congestion during the reconstruction. University Drive is on the critical path for the Central City project. The roadway will be elevated approximately 10 to 15 feet to create the valley storage required. So what does that mean? Well, essentially, this project must be completed before the north and south bypass channels can be activated. So to raise University Drive, it will be necessary to construct either vertical retaining walls or earthen slopes as seen in these conceptual images. This important detail will be worked out during design, which the Corps of Engineers is now entering. University Drive will continue to be 3 lanes in each direction after the project is complete. So although the rerouting of the traffic will happen in 2026 or later, the temporary full closure must be known now to incorporate into the design. This temporary closure will minimize the construction time and impacts on businesses in and around this project corridor. The closure will also provide for a safer construction environment due to the significant amounts of fill required here. So this period of closure is anticipated to be between 12 and 18 months. A City Council resolution in support of the temporary closure during reconstruction will be on the February 27th City Council agenda for your consideration. So access routes and detour routes will be finalized during the design phase. City staff have been meeting with property owners immediately adjacent to the closure to share conceptual access and detour plans. We'll continue to reach out to all regional stakeholders as more details are known. So while the Corps of Engineers is leading the design and construction of this project, we do have a City of Fort Worth project manager assigned. So I would encourage stakeholders, businesses, and neighborhood associations to reach out to Doug Rademacher to schedule time to discuss. So it's anticipated that Rockwood Park Drive and the Cloverleaf will remain open during construction to provide access to businesses from the south. If vertical retaining walls are used, then the pink line could be an option for access to those businesses. If earthen slopes are incorporated, then the blue line would provide access. So the access concepts on the west side include a temporary connector road between Rockwood Park Drive and Rockwood Lane. The ultimate design will need to be mindful of slopes and turning angles to accommodate large truck movements.
So this is the projected traffic volumes on our local streets with a full closure of University Drive. Again, the specific detour options and traffic control plans will be developed by the Corps of Engineers during the design of the roadway. However, it is anticipated that Henderson Street, White Settlement Road, Northside Drive, and North Main Street will be key components of this detour. So this is just a reminder for community groups and interested stakeholders to reach out to Doug Rademacher. If not, we will be in touch. Mayor and Council, do you have any questions for me?
Questions for Mayor and Council? Macy?
Lauren, I wanted to thank you for the time you've taken to reach out to the Cowtown, Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, Dickies. You've done really a great job in making sure they have a voice and understand what the process is and what's happening. And I know this is going to be extremely disruptive to a lot of businesses and residents, but you've done a great job this far. Thank you.
Thank you. There's more work to be done. We'll be reaching out to more folks involved.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. Council, our last presentation is the Urban Forestry Master Plan, and LaShondra Stringfellow is going to present.
Okay, well, good evening, Mayor and City Council. I am LaShondra Stringfellow, Assistant Director for the Zoning and Design Review. So this is my first official presentation before you, so go easy on me, I will ask for that. So I'm actually just a messenger here today. There has been a lot of great work that's been done by folks at your table. I would like to go ahead and first acknowledge Mayor Pro Tem Bivens and Councilmember Blaylock, who have really helped lead this effort, as well as we have some staff members that I am also going to introduce a little bit later in this presentation, as well as some members from our community, and of course, Texas Trees Foundation, who has really helped us with drafting this plan. And so also we have some supporters who helped with the funding: Wells Fargo, Atmos, the Nicholas Spartan Jr. Family Foundation, and BNSF Railway. And so, as I was saying earlier, Mayor Pro Tem Bivens and Councilmember Blaylock were the co-chairs for the steering committee for this plan and this process. This is our entire steering committee, so it included some members from staff, of course, as well as Texas Trees Foundation. We also had 3 members from our Development Advisory Committee also on the committee. And I would also like to point out Parks and Recreation has done a lot of heavy lifting as well. Joel McElhaney, who is also in the audience today, and our own urban forestry officer, Jacqueline Ingram, as well as manager Mary Wells and Craig Fox, our city forester. So what we're gonna cover in this presentation is a brief history of how we got here, how the plan was developed, the various community engagement activities, and how we plan to achieve our vision. So why trees? Why now? So the Cross Timbers region is the area that really our particular area, our region, has the most mature trees. It actually traverses from the southeastern Kansas across central Oklahoma to central Texas. It's named for repeated crossings of timberland before the open prairies to both east and west, and it's undisturbed land today in the East Cross Timbers, and it's perhaps the most fragmented vegetative region in Texas. So one thing that we realized is that other than us being the fastest growing city in America, we're also losing about 2,500 acres of natural open space to development each year. And so, as you all are probably aware, we have a couple of other programs that are also really part of why we're doing this plan. We want to make sure that this plan and the vision and our recommendations, the tasks that come after that, are going to align with the mayor's Good Natured Green Space Initiative, and then we also have our open space conservation plan, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that at the end and the different efforts that we plan to undertake in order to achieve our vision. So this process actually started in January 2022. And so if Cherry Quaylar is in the audience, is she in the audience today? She's, I just want to make sure that I give a huge shout out to her because she's done a lot of work on this plan. But this actually started again in January 2022. The city funded $50,000 of the total amount to get this plan done. And then TTF was able, that's Texas Trees Foundation, was able to help assemble the rest of the funds for a total of $250,000. And in May 2022, council approved for us to move forward with this plan. And so really what this plan centers around is four things. First, what is it that we currently have? What is it that we want to get? How are we going to get there? And how are we doing today? So we talked a little bit earlier about staff collaboration, but as this plan went through the process, these are all the different departments that have been involved. So we want you to know that it has been fully vetted throughout the entire process. We also did quite a bit of community engagement. And just to let you see the level of engagement that has occurred, there have been 61 participating organizations, so many that, you know, you can probably barely read them on the slide here, but 61 participating organizations that have had some type of input at some point in this process. And that included various surveys and events. We even had a bilingual community survey. We had pop-up events, community workshops, and 6 focus groups. And this was the various distribution methods that we utilize. We didn't rely on just one particular area. We wanted to make sure that there was a way we could get the message out to as many different people as possible. So in all, we ended up having over 2,300 community participants and over a 5-month engagement process. So this is an overall what the community said they wanted, you know, and I like to joke, you know, of course, we want it all, right? You know, we want the shade. We want to add trees where they don't exist. We want to be able to increase preservation. And, you know, just for me personally, that is actually something that is near and dear to my heart. So we're going to talk a little bit at the end about how we intend to do that, because it's going to be a huge collaborative effort amongst all of our development ordinances. And then also increasing funding for programs that we currently have, and being able for folks to be able to access information. So this is where we want to be, y'all. We want to have, by 2050, we want to have 30% tree canopy. And we think that is very doable. Currently, we're at 19%, and we've actually been at 19% for a while. But let's talk about how we intend to get there. So these are the goals, the overall arching goals that have been established in order for us to reach this plan, and then there are recommendations after this goal. So first thing that we want to do is we want to continue to manage our urban forests. We want to preserve and expand what we currently have. We need to strengthen the programs that we also currently have, and that also includes adding additional programs where that's needed. And then this idea of equitable engagement, and that also came up quite a bit too in some of our board and commission meetings, especially Parks Board, as we were meeting with those various commissioners and board members. So there are 10 recommendations here. And the reason why I put this up here, initially we were going back and forth on, should we just show you the recommendation? Well, the reason why why we didn't is because we want you to see that there are many action steps that are involved in these recommendations. And as we go through trying to adopt some of these various ordinances and make amendments to them, you're going to be involved in that process, as well as the community, the boards and commissions. This is not the end. Really, this is actually the beginning, in my opinion. So I feel like I got here for the fun stuff. So recommendation 1, we want to first, of course, conduct a comprehensive inventory, and that is actually already underway. So we've already started this one. Recommendation 2, we want to develop and implement changes to tree regulations, standards, and best practices. So one thing that's very important to point out here is that we're just not talking about the tree preservation ordinance. We're talking about the zoning ordinance, and we're talking about subdivision ordinance. And the reason why that's important is when we talk about being able to preserve trees, looking at how we're developing now is going to be very important, because I'll give you, one example. Say a developer has a 100-acre tract of land. Maybe 50 acres of that is heavily treed. The other 50 acres doesn't have as many trees. One of the things that we want to really start looking at doing is what can we do to make sure that we preserve half of that, right? Those 50 acres, we want them to preserve as much as possible. But now what that may mean is maybe an additional height, maybe more density on that other 50 acres in order to preserve, the other 50 acres for where it's heavily treed. So that's one thing that we're actually going to try to embark upon first. Recommendation 3, this is expanding and strengthening cooperation amongst the various departments. So that's not just development services, but that also goes to our Public Works Department and, of course, our Parks Department. Strengthening existing relationships and support new partnerships with neighborhoods and community organizations throughout the city. Supporting and expanding plans for maintenance, risk management, and resiliency of public trees. Coordinating and creating and implementing public communications, education, and engagement focused on Fort Worth's urban forests. And a lot of this too, I believe, will be partnerships with the Parks Board, because some of the comments that came from the Parks Board was making sure that areas that maybe don't have as many parks or don't have as many trees, that how do we support those areas so that they can basically have the same level of forest as other areas within the city. Recommendation 7 is developing and implementing a strategy to maintain sustainable funding and resources to achieve desired levels of service. Recommendation 8 is creating plans for tree planting, preservation, and maintenance in order for us to get to that 30% canopy cover. And again, that's kind of encompassing really a lot of some of the other recommendations that I've already talked about. Recommendation 9, developing protocols for monitoring the forest, because I know Jacqueline, one of the things that she gets the most frustrated about is having to go back after the fact when someone has already cut down trees. So what can we do to let people know that don't cut down trees until you talk to us, get some type of permit, but then also after the fact, how can we have better enforcement in order to make sure that what has been done can be mitigated. And finally, strengthening and expanding and increasing the awareness of our programs. So this is the approval process timeline. After that engagement occurred, starting on December 13th, we had our first board presentation. That was with Parks Board. We actually went to Parks Board twice. First time was to present, second time was to get feedback. Of course, we presented to our city manager's office, our urban design committee. DAC, that's our development advisory committee, also had 2 various presentations. We presented to the City Plan Commission, and we're here today. So one thing I also want to tell you, we're just presenting today. If you all are, happy about where this plan is going and these recommendations we've presented, then what we would like to do is present to you a hard copy of the plan and have this on the February 27th meeting for action. So we do want to go ahead and let you know some of the comments. I've talked to you a little bit about it, but some of the comments that came up from the various boards and commissions, and these were answered and addressed during the meeting. However, again, we have a week. If there are any additional follow-ups that you feel like we need to address, we'll be happy to do that. But Parks and Recreation board wanted to know about current canopy count. We answered that, the inventory and how this is going to affect current policies. Our Urban Design Commission, they were happy to see plan being completed. And the reason why UDC is here is because this is actually the board that will hear any type of variance to our current tree preservation ordinance. And these are some comments, the top two are from our City Plan Commission. And there was a discussion of our ordinance and then how the process is going to proceed. This is totally a highlight, right? A summary. They really had a lot of questions on what happens with the ordinance and how are we going to enforce the ordinance and how is the ordinance going to be crafted. So again, there's still a lot of work to be done in order to get to that point. And then the last one was the Development Advisory Committee. And they wanted to make sure that there was recognition that whenever they have, especially these larger developments, like I was giving you an example of the 100-acre development, those are really key opportunities where we can expand the forest on a larger scale. And so we look forward to being able to figure out what that ordinance looks like and collaborating with them in order to achieve our goals. So that concludes my presentation. You see I listed Jacqueline as the person to go to for questions. I always like to put her in the hot seat. But of course, I'm here to answer any questions today as well as we go forward and look forward to your approval on next week.
I've just got some comments to share. And LaShondra, you're new here, and I appreciate the positive attitude you exhibited during this presentation. But I need to make sure the public knows where this came from. And it predates, I think you used the year 2021. It predates this. And we have to know what brought this about so that we can understand the public's expectations of what they want to see and what we vote on. And at this point, I'm really not ready for it to go to council yet. This came about, and I get really emotional about this. If you just Google Gina Bivens and D.R. Horton, you'll remember. This came about because of a clear-cutting incident that D.R. Horton did in 2018. And after they did the clear-cutting, we got what I call the rains from hell. And that's when the east side flooded. They had bypassed the development process, and it was a very, very bad time for our city, and especially the east side. One thing it's important that you know, as soon as that happened, there were 3 people I called, and their names should be included on those people who were thanking. I called Louise Hart, Louise Appleman, Judy Harmon, and Margaret DeMoss, because those were people I knew loved trees and felt the pain that we all felt. This was devastating for us. And so what the public is going to want to see is not so much all of the process, but what are we going to do financially to keep this from ever happening again? And so until I can read and make sure that I see penalties, fines, what have you, that are significant and meeting the expectations, I'm at a pause with this. But you have to be reminded how we got here. And I think this council has Carlos was here, but this council has changed, since that happened. But I have not forgotten. And so, DJ, you know the drama, you know the pain, you know the anger. People were upset all over this city. And so this was a very hard thing for us to have to bear. But what the public really got upset about is that they felt that the fines were a pass-through. And we've made some changes in how we penalize, what have you, but they called it a backdoor deal. And I met with Randall last week, and he said he still felt the stripes on his back. But the idea was the department head had the option to decide on what the fines could have been. And the Star Telegram headline was, D.R. Horton could face $1.58 million. And it was nothing like that. And so I know what the public expects to come from this work. I just want to make sure that we're delivering that and not sugarcoating this because we finished something. And I'm also concerned about how we audit, the study that we paid for that was done. So I don't have any questions, DJ. I'm just letting folk know where I am right now.
Well, I just wanted to let you know that, this is just step one. But I also want to point out that we have made some incremental changes since that situation with D.R. Horton. Number one, the Development Services Director is no longer able to make those negotiations with developers. That has to come to the full council for consideration. So we did make that change, and we've made some additional changes with fees along the way. But this work right here, what it does, though, it creates a meaningful step toward the area where you'd like to go. For example, I think one of the recommendations is to form an additional steering committee, which will be comprised of our stakeholders that you and I and Councilmember Blaylock has been meeting with over the last couple of years, with that group, as well as our developers, our landscape architects, our clear cutters, to ensure that everybody has a voice in the room, and then we can go back and open up the ordinances to see where those fines need to be and where those penalties need to be. For example, some of the situations we've discussed were, right, instead of finding the property owners, but a lot of these clear-cutting incidents are not developers. They're generally some property owner that has a property and they don't understand urban forestry, or they're not apprised of our ordinances, and they'll go and clear-cut a lot of property.
DJ, that's true, and I feel you, I support you, but we cannot forget how we got here, because it happened before even 2018, when Becky Haskins was on the council. East Side got clear-cut again. And so, even though I know the average John Doe DIY guy can clear-cut some trees, I feel obligated to make sure the public's expectations are met on how we deliver this.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the other question, since I'm going to ask you a question anyway, one big concern I had was inspections in the field. So when we see someone, and for those of you who are new, it was like a Vietnam flashback. One morning, I got a call from somebody in the John T. White area. Somebody was clear cutting. And in this case, it was property owned by Huffines. Well, it turns out they had a permit dating back to 2017, so we couldn't stop them. It was their property, and they were legit. But that's just how anxious, the east side of Fort Worth became, because we continue to lose trees. And I just don't want this flowered up like, look what we did, and we don't correct what happened. So that's where I am. I really hope we can wait before we go to council. I'm just very, very paranoid about doing a wrong step that I know is going to give me flack from people who I trust and who I turn to. And I want to make sure that their expectations are met with what we deliver, because they fought this battle before I got on the council.
Absolutely. I understand.
I'll go to the next question, but just because we were talking about the situation in East Fort Worth, D.R. Horton, remind me what the fine was for D.R. Horton after that happened.
It was less than 300 grand from what I remember. It was.
Yes, ma'am. That was a little bit before my time, but I can get back to you on that.
Do you remember anybody, Dana, or anybody, what that was? Yeah. I just remember it not being as significant as the damage that was done.
That's right.
And so I think that mistrust still exists there for sure. Anyway, Carly, yeah. Carlos, Charlie, anybody? You choose.
Okay, I'll go and go. So I think one of my, I don't really have a question, just a, I guess, concern as we move forward with this is in line with Mayor Pro Tem Bivens. It's unintended consequences. And I think that really goes back to making sure that the Development Advisory Committee really is at the table, because I'd hate to see us create ordinances that are great on paper, but it prevents opportunity, like, we talk about housing and needing more housing, something that's so restrictive that now, let's say an affordable housing component came in, now we have an ordinance that's so restrictive, they're like, it's gonna be it's not cost effective, we can't make it work, we're gonna go somewhere else. Like, and I believe it's Grapevine that has very restrictive policies, so it almost makes land, it devalued land in a lot of cases. So I really want to make sure, like, we're at Fort Worth Builders Association, Real Estate Council, those folks are saying, hey, it sounds good, but here's what could happen if you do it. So that way we can make better decisions at the table.
Absolutely, council member. We're trying to take a belt and suspenders approach. So, we've got the fines and we've got the penalties, but we're also looking for incentives for them to preserve the trees. For example, we can give them stormwater credits toward the water bill, or we can also give development fee waivers. We can give additional density bonuses with their zoning. So we're looking at creatives, and that's the second phase of this, is to get that stakeholder team together to discuss and brainstorm all of these additional changes that we want to make to our ordinances to incentivize as well as to penalize the bad behavior.
I guess I'm hurt from history, because what happens when I hear a presentation that references 2021 as the start, and I know that it's prior to that, I don't have the confidence right now. And that's not in your staff's ability to deliver, but I need people to understand what happened. And the other thing that I will tell you with certainty is, when you take a look at what happened to the east side with that clear cutting, and then we had another cutting that took place, I do not want to have a perception out there that this council has not heard the people with significance. And this is so flowery and professionally done. It doesn't have, I don't hear what my public expects to hear. And I don't care if that's phase 1, 2, or 3. We've got to be sure that we're not injuring ourselves because we say, well, this is just phase 1. And, we did have some difficulty and some conflict before Alan came on board in terms of, who do we trust, who are the speakers, and I'm just not there yet. And this is mostly my district that got hurt from this. And I will tell you, people have not forgotten. And so I don't want to see anything that's moving forth without being thoroughly vetted, thoroughly projected. And I can tell you right now, the public is not going to feel that they were heard, because the fine it was described as a slap on the wrist, and that's what it was a slap on the wrist. And so we can't put something out there not looking ahead as to how it's going to be received by the public. And I'm very uneasy about this.
Yes, ma'am.
Carlos, did
We
you ask your
understand.
question? I'm sorry. Go ahead, DJ.
I was going to say, we understand. It just means we got more work to do, and we'll go back and, we'll follow up with you and those stakeholders to ensure that everyone understands what this work means for the city of Fort Worth, as well as where we're trying to go.
Jared, did you already ask your question? I'm sorry, I spaced out. You did, or you didn't?
No, I did.
Okay, good deal. Jared.
Cool, thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. Similar to Mayor Pro Tem, I think it's important also for District 6 residents. We also have some battle wounds with trees with one of the recent storms. And a lot of folks in several neighborhoods in our district are basically saying not all trees are created equal, which they're not. And during the recent storm, many trees got blown down and caused thousands of dollars of damage for individual residents because the developer planted a tree that ultimately wasn't going to be durable in this type of climate and got blown over, and you know how that goes. So I think it's also important within this work to talk about native trees, and then also maybe a separate conversation that's complementary to this is that.
And one thing that I do want to make sure that I underscore with this, and maybe I did not do as good of a job as I could have, but this is a plan, right? And so if there are things like you were talking about that we need to bolster in the plan to make it clear, to have language that is, I guess, more substantial, that talks about we are serious about protecting our trees, that's definitely something that we can add. But a lot of, well, actually all of the actual regulations are going to come with the ordinance. So this kind of really sets up, this is what we want. And if there's not language strong enough in this ordinance, in this plan, we can definitely bolster that. And then once we get to the ordinance, everyone's going to be at that table. And that'll be much more than one, presentation. But we'll definitely take these comments and see where we
LaShonda,
can.
you were fine, you were perfect. You were fine, you were perfect. I mean, let it go.
Okay, I'll let it go.
What you got?
Oh, I was just going to say, as far as Judy Hartman, Margaret DeMoss, and Louise Appleman, I did speak with all three of them regarding the recommendations.
No. I mentioned them specifically because their names were absent. They put in blood, sweat, and tears with me and the committee and the group and staff. And what I said was, I want their names on here.
Yes, ma'am, and they are included in the
names I saw. Okay,
I'm sorry.
You want to have a debate here? Their names are not here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
believe they're in the full master
Yeah,
plan.
it is, but here,
So,
thank you.
No, so sorry, I got questions. Go to the slide that has achieving the vision and shows you a timeline of where our goals are, if you don't mind. Thank you so much.
Was it this one, or should I go?
Nope, that one right there. So I'm curious, over the 20, this probably is conservative, I would guess, correct? Because you want to achieve, want to put goals on paper you can achieve. Okay.
Yes, and I don't know if, let's see if Joel is still in the audience. I don't know, Joel, if you can speak a little bit more to the survey and how that was developed. Is that kind of?
That's fine. Yeah, I'm more curious about why 30% in 2050, why 2023, we're only going to increase by 3% by 2035.
Okay, I'm Joel McElhenney, Assistant Director of Park and Recreation Department. I would have to go back to that 30% of when that was first developed. I know that percent, just in the development of this plan, we talked about that percent, that goal. And it is what it is because of that region that we live in, largely prairie. So it's a little bit lower. And as we go into different areas of the country, more wooded areas, they would have a higher goal. But in ours, since we're Cross Timbers region and largely a prairie type community, that's why that goal is at 30%. But I would have to follow up with that information of why that was originally established.
And that's okay, that's helpful. Go ahead, Jared.
And Mayor, that's what I was alluding to with the green space complementing tree canopy covers, because we're sitting in a prairie, and so if we don't have standards that also speak to landscaping practices beyond trees, we'll get to the same.
That's helpful, thank you. Okay. Yeah, maybe we just parse that out a little bit more, because I think the general public is going to get stuck on certain things, and that, to me, would be something that people get pretty fixated on, and that's okay. And because we're in Texas, people are going to compare us to other Texas cities, and to the point that Joel just made, different areas of Texas compare us to city of Austin, for instance. It's in the Texas Hill Country, very different tree canopy goal that's in place there than it would be here. So I think just be prepared to answer those questions. Trying to channel Mayor Pro Tem Bivens' concern, I think what we could do with this presentation as a city is provide context for how we got here, and a reminder, especially for some of these more difficult circumstances that Gina actually pointed out today, and there are other examples in every district probably, and that may provide additional cover for our community members that are concerned. Like, we're not trying to gloss over anything, and we do need to be more aspirational, and the D.R. Horton is just one really extreme example that happened not too long ago, and I think it's okay to remind people of that. And I think for Gina in particular, she hears about that probably weekly from people that are still concerned. So, what's that? Yes, exactly. So it may be just helpful to provide some context for this report as it comes out to council in the next few weeks. Carlos?
LaShondra, this may be a study that's much larger than what, you're presenting here in this plan, and I totally understand that. Are you aware of any studies that maybe look at and correlate factors that pertain to trees and their cleaning of the air abilities? Because we're in a non-compliance area right now. So back in 1997, we had this 40% goal. Now, another few decades down the road, we're at 30. We're growing as a state. That's good news. But, we're trying to reach, these EPA mandated, compliance targets.
And is it 30% sufficient?
Well, I didn't want to use that question because I think, as you know, it's an oversimplification. But is there any data that correlates it so that you can kind of track it? See, how these factors work.
Let me look into that.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I know that's why you asked it, but let me look into it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Alan.
So first, I really enjoyed co-chairing this committee. It was a great process. Thank you, everybody, for their role. And I have to agree with Mayor Pro Tem. We had a lot of voices involved from all sides of the discussion, and we need to continue to do that. We've got a basic framework of what we want now. I think you can say the devil's always in the details. What we do from here moving forward as we look at our ordinances and our plans, we need to make sure those same stakeholders are involved so we come with the right approach moving forward. And so I really want to commend the work so far and acknowledge that we have a lot more still to do.
Yeah.
But thank you very much.
Yes, great presentation. Any other comments or questions, council? Thank you very
Great,
much.
thank y'all.
Sandra. Council, that's the conclusion of our briefings today. Are there any requests for future agenda items or reports? Jeanette, then Jared,
And me.
and then everybody?
So mine is for legal and PD. SB 4, or the anti-immigrant law, if I'm not mistaken, goes into effect March 1st. I'd like to hear the city's interpretation of the law and how Fort Worth PD will communicate its approach to the public. There are many, many individuals and families who are worried about this new law, and I feel we at least owe them a statement.
Jared?
Thank you. Just following up on the tree master plan conversation, I think it would be worth having an IR on what our current ordinance is around native landscaping practices, including trees.
Carlos?
Okay, I'd like PD to maybe look at, I mean, I don't want to just point out one thing, but as an example, Mobileye technology collision avoidance systems.
What?
Mobileye, it's collision avoidance systems. You know, you're teasing me, I'm sorry. You know, for vehicles. Technologies like that, you know, might reduce, you know, those kind of collisions, especially in pursuit situations.
Okay. I have one.
Gina?
I think most of us have, if not seen, we've probably heard about the burning rubber when kids are doing donuts and wheelies. When I saw one on 820 recently, this is on a highway, one way, it really got to me because that's getting a little bit too dangerous. Recently, someone totaled a car a few doors down from Council Member Frank Moss, and I've been getting a lot of emails about that. I'd like to hear a report from TPW, and I know that they're going to check with MedStar and Fire and Police. Why can we not consider speed bumps again? I think we outlawed them in 2007, 2008, but it's getting out of control. And if we can't bring those back, at least give us reasons why that I can tell my public, because they see those as a way to calm traffic. I think when William Johnson came, he talked about speed tables. I don't care what you call them, but is there a way? Realistically, the last street I had a report on, it's too long for speed hump, speed whatever. But what can we do to slow traffic down? Because now they're getting into residential communities, and somebody's going to get hurt, killed, or maimed. And I have one more, Mayor. I'd like a report on neighborhood associations, and these are the voluntary organizations. I'd like to know how many we have, and I'd like to go back 5 years. How does that number changed? And I'd like to see that citywide, not just my district. What I'm hearing is that we're losing neighborhood associations. And that may be good, that may be bad. I don't know, some cities don't even bother with them. But I would like some type of history as to how we're trending. And finally, when it comes to neighborhood alliances, we have had a credibility factor, and it's not just new, but an alliance claiming more associations than they had. And so I'd like to know a report from City Legal. Do we really need to be trying to police or manage neighborhood alliances? And so those are my three.
Gina, you might be interested to know, talk to Chelsea St. Louis about speed tables and speed cushions. We're using those to mitigate that type of activity over in Rockwood Park's parking lot.
Is TPW putting them down, or who's
Yes,
putting
they
them
are.
down?
They are. Just go through Chelsea.
Okay, because see, we've had requests in, but those requests have fallen on deaf ears. So what I need to ask for?
Well, speed cushions or, you know, are typically what you're talking about. But I think there was also prior IR a few years ago on that.
Lawrence coming to the table.
So
My favorite
we can
TPW
reduce some
director.
paperwork here. What Councilmember Flores is referring to is our neighborhood traffic calming program. If you Google it, a webpage will come up, but essentially it's for residential areas only. Where you might be getting a less than favorable reply is on arterials or other such streets, right? We couldn't put a speed table or a speed bump, whatever you want to call it, on a major arterial where people are going 40 miles or above. So these traffic calming measures are really for those residential areas. So if you have a specific location, please, I'll talk with you tomorrow about that, and we'll look into that further.
Lauren, you know, I trust you with everything, and they are encroaching in the residential areas, so for sure we need to have a conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I normally can articulate these a little better, but bear with me because it's TPW and water. I would like to know the process on how we investigate standing water in the roadway, because we have a lot of complaints about that in District 9, and particularly as summer comes along and mosquito season hits, and my constituents and also my office tends to get, it feels like a ping pong tournament. We just get bounced back and forth between it's not us, and we need to figure out who it is and how we do that so that we can navigate that for our residents a little better.
Meeting adjourned.
All right. Good afternoon, Fort Worth. Oh, come on now, you know this is a talk back. Good afternoon, Fort Worth. And welcome to Diversity Matters Black History Month. My name is Christina Brooks. I'm your Chief Equity Officer. And I took time before we get started with the program, the formal program, I have a poem that I want to share with you that I think sets the tone and the mood for what we will experience today. It's called We Summon Something. We summon hope with every sunrise, seeing a future that has us in it. Not to replace you, because our space is not yours and your space is not ours. Our space is infinite and has no boundaries. It is space that God created for us and all are bound to respect. We summon hope with every sunrise, hoping our sons rise, hoping our daughters raise the bar. Because it ain't magic, you dig? It isn't your way or no way. We belong in the light. We belong to the light. That's why we rise with the sun. In the sun. We summon. We something. We are Afrofuture. You dig? You dig? You dig?
That was awesome. Amazing. Thank you, Christina. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Terrence Hamilton. I serve on the city's Diversity and Inclusion Employee Committee. And on behalf of the committee, I want to welcome you to today's Black History Month program. I've had the great privilege of working with the employee work group that planned today's program, which will feature a presentation on Afrofuturism, imagining the future while honoring the past, as well as an original performance of music and monologue spanning more than 300 years of history, infused with the ideology of Afrofuturism before the term was even coined. So before we begin, and I know some of you are eating your food there, and for those of you who are joining us virtually, hey to my office staff. Before we begin the program, we have a message from our city leadership that will be delivered by Assistant City Manager Jessica McAkeren. Did I get it right?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for coming today. It is an honor for me to join y'all to welcome you here to this program. I know I've been attending these for about 18 months now since I joined the city, and I have learned so much each time we have one of these programs. We know in the city manager's office that it is critical that we celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only here in our workforce, but also in our community. We know that it's important to have multiple voices at the table and different points of view. It helps us to ensure that we make better decisions, that we learn from the past, and we take our city thriving into the future. I am so proud to be a City of Fort Worth employee where I know that diversity is a core value here in the city, and I think that's just so important. We're gathered here today to hear what I know is going to be a phenomenal program. I was talking to Dr. Mack, right? And telling her just how excited I was. The title alone is exciting, and I can't wait to hear what she presents with us today. Black History Month is a time to recognize the significant contributions and enduring legacy of African Americans throughout U.S. history, as well as here in the state of Texas and right here in Fort Worth. We all know the story of Opal Lee, who's right here in Fort Worth, and just her incredible efforts at the national level to have Juneteenth recognized as a federal holiday. I also learned the other day, and I'll preface this with saying basketball is truly my most favorite sport. So when I learned the other day about retired coach Robert Hughes, who is still the most winning basketball coach, boys basketball